This is Python's Paradise. This is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena, straight out of Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. And here we are, folks, on November the 24th, 2023, winding down the year. And today, folks, we're going to get crazy while reading French postcards at the Funhouse. you know and you never know, some of those postcards might have Larry Flynt on it, who might have been an associate for my guest. Maybe.
You did your homework.
Folks, I have an awesome guest on here today, and I got to thank Tommy Kovac from Splat from the Past for connecting me, because he put in a good word about this guy, and I was like, absolutely, absolutely. Folks, I give you the awesome Milos Chapin. Did I get
Chapin.
your Chapin?
Chapin. Chapin.
Okay,
Yeah.
I
Like
messed that
Harry.
up.
Yeah, that's okay. Don't worry.
Okay,
Listen, you just
Chapin.
said awesome beforehand. It doesn't really matter. So you've already got my ego on a cloud. So it's great.
Well, there we are. There we are. How you doing?
Good. Beautiful day. This sunlight that's hitting me is coming through my window. It's going to fade a little bit as the sun moves. So, greetings from New York City.
New York City. I've interviewed a lot of guests from New York City, but I'm going to tell you, when we were talking before, it amazes. Here's the thing with New Brunswick, is that next to nobody knows where it is. Even scheduling a Zoom, you'd have no idea how many times I have to tell people that no, 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 I'm an hour ahead of you, but Zoom doesn't
Yeah.
acknowledge that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Well, you've got
pretty.
it even weirder in Canada because you've got that weird Newfoundland half hour thing going on, right?
Yeah.
And that's weird. And then I go to New Brunswick almost every year because I like to go like camping and fishing and canoeing and stuff. And one of the places I go is on the river that's the border between Quebec and New Brunswick. And the Quebec is on Eastern Standard Time, but the New Brunswick side of the river is on Atlantic Time. But
Yeah.
at this camp, they keep to Eastern Standard Time, but my cell phone doesn't know that. So there's always like the first time the first night I'm there, or if people have never been there before, they think that it's an hour different. And so it's like, when are we going fishing? What time are we going to meet for dinner kind of thing? It's a nightmare. But yeah, no, it's terra incognita. People think it's like Maine and then wilderness. That's it. That's just a Yankee chauvinism, I guess.
Well, it's interesting that I'm like, wow, you come up here yearly, you said?
Yeah, just about every year since 1973, I think.
Oh, wow. So you were coming up here even when you were doing some of these movies that we're going to be talking about.
Sure. No, there was one
Wow.
time where I was fishing on the Restigouche River as the
Hmm.
guest of some dear friends, and I fished the evening beat, and I caught a salmon on my last cast of the day, which is like amazing, right? So I caught a salmon, went back upriver, had dinner. The next morning, I got into a canoe, went downriver, bum, 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 bum. That night, I ended up in Malibu, California on a mountaintop with Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise and John Ritter and a bunch of these like super movie stars watching the sunset. It was one of the most surreal experiences of my life.
Tell me, is Nicole Kidman is beautiful in person?
Yes, and very tall also, very tall. But this was years ago. Years ago back when Tom and Nicole were married and you could fly out of Charlotte.
Hmm. I mean, I like Tom Cruise and John Ritter, but I mean, my mind did go there, man. Nicole Kidman, she's beautiful.
She's a very good actress too. Let's face it, she's a remarkable actress.
She
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
absolutely. Couldn't believe she didn't get an Oscar nomination for To Die For. She was remarkable in that.
Yeah, yeah. Which was
Yeah.
written, the book that was written or written from was a woman who I went to high school with, Joyce
Oh,
Maynard.
wow.
Yeah, Joyce Maynard wrote that
I
book.
know that name. Yes, I do.
Joyce is a
So,
Very talented writer. Yeah.
And of course, John Ritter no longer with us. I've heard so many good things about him.
John Ritter is one of the sweetest people I ever met, and arguably the funniest person I ever met. And I know a lot of funny people, and like I've hung out with like comics and stuff. And John Ritter was just a sweetheart, and his wife was great, and it was a real
Yeah,
tragedy.
Amy Asbeck. I like her too.
Well, it was weird because Ritter and Cruz's agents, who used to be my agents,
Hmm.
Rick Nisita, uh, um, and Paula Wagner, Rick's wife, and a couple of other like Hollywood heavyweights. One of the Zucker brothers.
I
Um,
love them. Yep.
yeah, we all went to Brazil together. It was a very strange thing. We all went to Brazil, to the heart of the Amazon rainforest, because I have a cousin who is a world class biologist, and I always wanted to go and visit his experiment in Brazil. And he called me one day and he said, look, I don't, not for nothing, but all these Hollywood people are coming down, and you should, I know you can talk to them, and I know I can talk to you, so maybe you can kind of, be the interpreter. And I said, I'd love to go. So we went on this wild trip to Brazil, to the rainforest. It was amazing. And this was in between wives, because Tom's first wife was on that trip. And then by the time he went right back and did the movie. I forgot the title, about the racing, about the what NASCAR racers. And by the time that came out, that's where he met Nicole. So by the time we got together, for I guess it was like around the publicity of that movie, first wife gone, second wife in. So that's what happens in Hollywood, I guess.
Yeah. When you were in the rainforest, did you see any anacondas?
No, the thing I don't tell you about the rainforest is the way you make your living in a rainforest is to be hidden. It's not like you walk through the jungle and somebody goes, "Okay, cue the anaconda. Okay, send in the howler monkeys." You have to be very careful. At night, it's different. At night, if you go out, I mean, the campsite we were in had a latrine that was about 300 yards away. So they'd give you a lamp, and you'd walk down this winding path, and then there was this latrine. I mean, there's a pit in the ground, right, with a little stool over it. And if you kept the light on while you were doing your business, what came out of the darkness attracted to the light would blow your freaking mind. I mean, just everything from butterflies this big that are bright blue to, stick bugs, and howler monkeys, that sound like jet airplanes taking off. It was really amazing. But that's why we went. I mean, it was a whole kind of environmental fact-finding thing. So
Wow. What was Tom Cruise like?
everybody, everybody asked that. I love Tom. I mean, Tom is. I met him. I think we got signed to CAA the same day, and we're sort of the same age. We're same bolt of cloth, as they might say. And Tom is one of the most intense, and I don't mean like. Well, I do. I mean, he's very intense. I mean, he's just 1,000% right there. And when you're talking to him, that is the most important thing in the world. And whatever he's doing, he jumps in with both feet, and this incredible intensity that he doesn't kick back. I mean, kicking back is not in his world. But he's just the generosity of this guy is amazing. He's loyal to his friends, to his family, to his co-religionists, and he's just remarkable guy. I mean, I take my hat off to him. And I also, I got to say, I like the way he works. Apparently his sets are run very. We're here to work. We're not here to mess around. There was that tape during COVID when he was yelling at somebody for not wearing a mask, and his point, if you listen to what he said, was like, there are hundreds of people whose employment are at stake. We are doing this. It's not me, it's not you, but you are putting us at peril by breaking that rule, that mask rule. And I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah.
So yeah, no,
Not
nothing
not
but good
big
stuff. about Tom?
Not big on his religion, but I gotta say I love his movies. And
Yeah,
speaking to Nicole Kidman, I did see Eyes Wide Shut in the theater when that came out.
yeah,
So
yeah, I did too. Yeah, no, no, on the religion, I mean, I'm a church-going guy, but not Scientology, and I respect it as far as that goes,
mhm.
and that's it. I mean, the government of the United States says Scientology is a religion, tax deductible. That's good enough for me. Anybody who is a member of an organized faith-based group, I give them props. I give them props for that.
Yeah, I don't judge either. Like I've got a lot of Tom Cruise movies here. I
Yeah,
hear a lot of stuff about Scientology, but quite frankly, I love Tom Cruise and I love John Travolta. I love all those folks. So it doesn't change me watching their movies and
me neither. Exactly.
I belong to the Christian faith, but I don't shove that down people's throats either. It's just,
Exactly. Exactly.
you
I'm a
know.
Unitarian. It's, everybody to their own. I wish there were more people that had some kind of, I mean, a lot of people have like, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. Well, that's great. But, when you get to a certain point with your own spirituality where you want to go public, you gotta join other people. But you mentioned Travolta. Do you guys get that Christmas commercial in New Brunswick that Travolta did for the credit card? Do you have that commercial?
Actually, I'll be frank, my TV is only set up to watch my Blu-rays, so
Okay. No, it's an absolute mind blower. The first time I saw it, I was like, "Whoa!" It's a campaign for I forget the credit card, but the slug line is "What's in your wallet?" Right? And it's been going on for years. And Samuel Jackson did one, so they have this one, and there's music from Saturday Night Fever playing, and it's
oh, love
"Staying
that
Alive."
movie.
Staying
Yeah.
Alive is playing, and you see this guy, this Santa Claus, walking down the street with carrying a bucket, and he's walking down, and it's a Santa Claus, full bore, beard, hair, everything. And he goes up to a pizza shop, and he says, "No, two, two, two," and he eats two pieces of pizza like this, and then he goes out on the dance floor, and he starts dancing, and you realize it's John Travolta wearing a Santa suit, and then the camera like goes zzz on him, or I should do this, zzz on him, and he looks and he says, "What's in your wallet?" And you realize it's John Travolta. And it's just like, oh my God, this is great. It's very cool. I love
Oh,
that
I
kind of stuff.
love that. Gee, I
Yeah.
need to look that up. But
It's got to be on the internet. I'm sure it's got to be. I mean, what is the credit card? I've got one. Wait a minute, I'll tell you because I have that credit card. It's Capital One. Yeah, it's a Capital One.
Capital One, I've heard of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just Google Capital One John Travolta ad 2023. You'll find it.
Oh, wow. That is awesome. That is
Hmm.
awesome.
Very cool.
I find it amazing that you had done like you've been up here, and like I said, I don't hear that a lot, so
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's
I
always a
know.
big thing for me, but
I know, I know, I know.
yeah.
Well, I don't get to Fredericton that often. Although 2 years ago I tried to get to Fredericton, but I just got waylaid. I got waylaid by the McCain Potato Museum in I forget what town it is. The one that's the long covered bridge, and
Okay.
I'd never been down there. It's on the St. John Valley, and because I was up in Maine and waiting for somebody who was flying in from California because we were going to go fishing, and their flight was delayed, so I had to spend an extra day. And I was going to go down to Fredericton because I hadn't been there in years, and so I didn't make it to Fredericton. But I'll never forget the first time I went to New Brunswick. Because like I say, Americans think, beyond the border, it's wilderness, tundra, and there's no civilization, there's no people. And you cross the border. And back then in the 70s, it was, it wasn't like it is today. I mean, it was basically like a little house with a guy outside saying, "Yeah, go on, hey, go ahead, do your thing there." And so we drove in, and then we drove into the St. John River Valley, which is that's a big ass river. That's a beautiful, that's like world class landscape. And it was like, oh my God, and we don't know anything about this. And then you follow these beautiful rolling hills. My cousin and I, we got so excited we had to get out of the car and throw the frisbee around because we just had to we had so much energy. And then we got to Fredericton and we spent a night in Fredericton and we bought, we got some maps and we got some salmon flies and, and we had our canoes polished or something. And then we took off and we were in, canoeing all these little rivers, in the middle of New Brunswick, the South New Brunswick. And then a couple of years later, I met a guy who had some salmon fishing, and he said, "Would you like to go salmon fishing?" I said, "You bet." And then, touch wood. Since then, I've been invited a lot, and I just love it. It's
Oh, I
just,
love that. Enjoy hearing that.
yeah.
It's funny because I'm just trying to get out of here and move to Toronto.
Well, no, it's the thing is, I grew up in New York City. I mean,
Yep.
I'm a native New Yorker for many, many, many generations, and I
Mm-hmm.
love cities. And New York is, I mean, come on, it's the city. It really is. I mean, let's face it. But I also love the country, and I also love the wilderness. And
Mm-hmm.
so going hiking and camping and canoeing and stuff and fishing, that's really important to me. So I try to do it both. And that's how I was drawn to New Brunswick and to Quebec too, and out of Gaspé Peninsula. That's just beautiful out there. So yeah, you know,
Oh, wow.
that's how I keep my sanity.
There you go. There you go. Well, it amazed me because you're in I looked up your credits and I was like, wow, I can't believe how many of his movies I have seen.
I know, but no hits. No hits, no big hits. Some very good movies, but no hits, and that's what does it. I mean, I meet with these directors sometimes, and they'll go, "Oh my God, you worked with Billy Wilder? You worked with Milos Foreman 3 times? Oh my God, you worked with Toby Hooper? Oh my God, Stanley Kramer? Oh my God, I gotta have you in my movie." And then they make an offer like, I don't have a role for you, but you'll be like reporter number 3, and it'll be one day at scale. And just, I did a couple of those, and I thought, fuck it. I don't need that. I mean, I don't have the stomach for that kind of thing. I mean, I love the work, and working with really good people, good actors, good directors makes a big difference. But the whole showbiz thing, no, I just, and it's funny because I say to people now, because I mean, in New York, you do a lot of charity work, and I work in real estate, and a lot of people get dazzled by celebrity, and there usually, or there sometimes comes a point where I say, "Look, I'm sorry, I'm not impressed. I was a fucking movie star. I don't
Hmm.
need this. This is not where I get my jollies." So it's funny, but life is long. You just got to balance out what you do and find your own happiness without
It's
hurting.
interesting you say that too, because being at the cons and whatnot now, like it's funny because with Lisa Langlois, for example, it's like I'm aware that she's in these movies, but now it's kind of like, she's one of my best friends.
Yeah,
You know, like if I was to go to Toronto today, it would just be a matter of, hey, you want to get together and have dinner or whatever,
yeah, yeah.
like Lisa I talk to a lot, and like I know we'll send each other Christmas gifts. She always sends something for my cat.
Nice,
you know.
nice.
Um, Nancy McLaughlin from Friday the 13th Part 6 Jason Lives talks to me a lot. And in fact, she sent me text me some pictures of her Thanksgiving last night. Like and I'm always appreciative of that because it's like, yeah, they're in these movies, but how cool is it to that they let me into their world, you
Well,
know?
they're human beings, and the thing is, if you look at creative people, okay, and
Uh-huh.
you look at people whose work, if it's good enough, you could call them artists. All right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was raised in a family where artistic expression and artistic achievement was above all. I mean, that was the value. But if you look at that crowd of people, you can do the work, and a lot of times you don't get recognition for it. You don't get paid for it. You don't get anything for it. Sometimes you get a little applause. Sometimes you get, but sometimes you get to be Tom Cruise, where you can't walk down the street. Um, so people that do that work, they kind of understand that, and they always like to have their work acknowledged. I mean, I say to people, you know, if you see somebody like in a restaurant, regardless of their celebrity, go over and just say, "I really like your work." If you go to a play and it's got somebody in it who you admire, go backstage. If they don't want to see you, you'll get that message quickly. But at heart, it's a human being. and any creative person needs to stay human or else your work turns to shit. You have to. Um,
Hmm.
and I mean, look at somebody like Banksy, Banksy, the British artist. He's completely anonymous. Nobody knows his real name. Nobody knows what he looks like, but he does these amazing artworks. And he doesn't, I mean, he does things that he sells for millions and millions of dollars, but he does free artworks too. He'll go to the wall between Ramallah and Israel and paint a mural of a blue sky and a crack in the wall and a little girl flying a kite. And he'll just paint it overnight and just like go away. And it's just, I mean, but he wants that anonymity because that's his humanity that he puts into his work. I don't know. Don't get me started. It's really important to me. So, but
Hmm.
I was inculcated with it from my family from the beginning. So that's my excuse.
Well, before we get into a lot of these impressive movies, I would like to get some of your background and what led you to get into the business.
Well, I sort of grew up in it. I mean, my parents both worked in the arts. My father was in the music business.
Okay.
My mother's family, her maiden name was Steinway, and they made pianos. So I was around the world of music, Broadway, classical music, my whole life. And of course, there were a lot of like friends of the family around, and I was a real character when I was young. And I'm the youngest of four boys, so like our household was insane. And my
I
mother was
bet.
a great hostess, and we'd have these, huge Christmas parties and such. So when I was about 8 years old, one of the family friends was conducting an opera at City Center in New York. It was part of the New York City Opera, and he asked my parents if he could put me in the chorus, and they said, "Well, ask him." So he said to me, "Would you like to be in the chorus of this opera?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And he said, "Well, you're going to have to come and sing, audition." And I said, "Okay, fine." And I went in and they said, "What do I want to sing?" And they said, "How about Happy Birthday?" So I sang Happy Birthday. And I ended up in the chorus of, it's a pretty obscure piece. It's called Street Scene. It's written by Kurt Weill, a great sort of Weimar Eric German composer. It's not done very often. Anyway, while we were doing that, there was a scout that was scouting a movie that a filmmaker named Frank Perry was directing. Some people have heard of Frank Perry, some people haven't, but he had a huge hit. He was sort of one of the original American independent filmmakers, and he had a huge hit with a movie called David and Lisa. It was written by his wife. It was Keir Delay was in it, and then his follow-up picture was a sort of a Cold War movie called Ladybug, Ladybug, and
Okay.
it was about what happened. Have you ever heard of it? You heard of that movie?
I see it on your, I have not,
Yeah.
but I see it
Okay.
on your credit list
Yeah,
here.
well,
Yeah.
what it is, it's what happens in a rural school somewhere in America when all of a sudden on a regular day the buzzer goes off in the office that there's going to be a nuclear attack within 1 hour. And so it's about how these kids react, and it follows them, groups of them going home. So I was in that movie, and then I was like 8, 9 years old, and I had a movie credit. And back then, there wasn't a lot of work for young actors. I mean, there was you had feature films mostly in Hollywood. You had a little bit of TV work in New York, and I was fat. I was very fat when I was young. So I was like, there's always a fat kid. So I was the fat kid for a couple of years. It was great. And then the culmination of that was I was at boarding school, and I got a telegram from a woman who I'd been to school with her daughter, who worked at William Morris Agency, and it said, "Are you free on Monday? Come and meet Stanley Kramer." And I got out of school and I flew to New York and I met Stanley Kramer, and I ended up in his movie Bless the Beasts and Children, and that was like a real bona fide movie, and it was really what I wanted to do, and I liked
Mhm.
it. And then I had to change schools. So I couldn't go back to the fancy New England boarding school that I went to. So I went to a school in New York that's called PCS, the Professional Children's School.
Mhm.
And my classmates were like Adam Arkin, Alan Arkin's son, Amy Irving, who married Steven Spielberg.
Oh, gee,
And
she's gorgeous.
oh man, I had a big crush on her. I took her to a
I
James Taylor concert.
I
Yeah.
bet you did. We all had a crush on Amy Irving.
Well, when she was in high school, she had so much hair, you had to like take the hair like this and look at her face. But my other classmate was Yo-Yo Ma, the cello player, you know.
Okay.
And this is pretty something. So anyway, so I got out of school and it was what I wanted to do. So I started working as an actor, and of course I was waiting tables and I had an agent and I started doing commercials and I started doing industrial films and whatever needed to be. And you could be a working actor. It's very hard to be a working actor these days. It's really feast or famine. But for a number of years, I kind of got every one of my wishes fulfilled. I mean, I wanted to do a small part in a big movie, and I got Hair, which is definitely a small part in a small-ish in a big movie. And then I got to do French Postcards because I wanted to do a big part in a small movie, and that's exactly what that was. And it sent me to Paris. And then, there was a little bit of notoriety that came from that. So, I went and did the Hollywood thing for a couple of years and I went back and forth quite a lot. And that was when I met like Alan Arkish, who did Get Crazy, who I had dinner with about a month ago. He was in New York, he and his wife. They came to
Oh,
my house.
good, because I'm going to have a story about him to share with
Oh,
you.
oh, tell me now. Tell me now. Tell me. I love
Oh,
him.
you want to hear that story?
Of course.
I wish you were having dinner with him tomorrow because I'd get you to rib the hell out of him.
Oh, no, no, no. You was rude to you?
Nope. Nope, he was not.
What
I've
happened?
had Alan Arkish on here 3 times.
Okay.
3 times. The third time he was on Zoom here. I used to do these at the station where I would do them by phone, but here's Get Crazy.
Oh, it's a wonderful movie. It's a great movie. Is that the Blu-ray?
It's a Blu-ray. Now that's the point I'm going to make.
Yeah.
Because I remember my first or second interview with him. Because I was heavily into Rock and Roll High School. I love that movie,
A
and I
great
said,
movie. It's a great
yeah.
movie.
And I said to Alan, I said, when is Get Crazy coming out on Blu-ray? And he goes,
Oh.
He goes, it'll never be on Blu-ray. Never ever be on Blu-ray because the music rights and all this stuff. I said, really? And he said, you'll never see it on Blu-ray and the transfer this and this and this. And he was telling me this. When I had him on last time, I said, Alan, what's this I got in my hand?
Yeah.
Get Crazy. I'm like, yeah, you notice the format, you know, uh, Blu-ray, and
Well,
I said, who told you?
well,
Oh, I tell you, I had some fun ribbing him on that. Like,
have
you
you, do
know,
you know Trailers from Hell?
yep.
Have you seen his
Yep.
explanation? Because that's it. But it's funny because for years there was one print of Get Crazy, and it was in a vault in North Carolina. And I got a call from some fan in New York who got
Hmm.
my number and said, "Listen, we're screening Get Crazy in New York on Saturday. Can you be there?" And I said, "No, I'm going to be out of town." And he goes, "Oh, too bad, too bad." And it was like a bomb going off. And he called me the next week and he said, "Oh man, we were ripping up the seats. It was incredible. The place was packed, and I think Stacy Nelkin was there and all these people were there." And I was like, "Oh my God, where did you get the print?" And they said, the school in North Carolina had a print. Then, about a year or so after that, I do a lot of work with a group. It's called the Village Preservation. It's about historical building preservation in Greenwich Village. And
Hmm.
I said, listen, what do we do as a fundraiser since it's set, in Greenwich Village at the Fillmore East? Why don't we have a screening and we'll do a little panel discussion and, it'll be fun. And they said, yeah, let's do it. So I got the print from North Carolina and sent it up here. We had a panel discussion. Stacy was there. A couple of other people were there. It was great. And Alan couldn't make it. He couldn't make it. But then fade out, fade in, like, I don't know, a year, no more, like 4 or 5 years later, he sends me a message and he goes, Miles, you won't believe this. They're actually going to do a Blu-ray of Get Crazy. And I said, congratulations. This is your masterwork, your Meisterstück. And he said, so I want to interview. We'll do a Zoom. And I said, anything you want, Alan. I mean, I love this guy. So we said, okay, 11 o'clock Eastern time. Only he's in California, right? So like he started was like, I guess, 8 o'clock, right?
Hmm.
So I'm right here. I'm sitting right here. And but it was middle of COVID, so like I had like dirty long hair and his like glasses. I wasn't wearing contact lenses, and we started talking, and we didn't shut up for about 4 hours. It was just amazing. We had so much to talk about, and he edited it down, and it's one of the extras on that Blu-ray, and
Yep.
it's just fabulous. I mean, and I've it was shown. There's a sort of a retro movie theater here in New York called the
Mhm.
Metrograph, which is very cool, and they showed Get Crazy about a year ago. And I have some friends. We were meant to have dinner that night, and they're usually very kind of chic, Upper East Side people, put it that way. And I said, listen, I don't know if this is something you'd like to do, but I was in this really wild movie years ago, and it's playing like way down near Chinatown in like hipster central. And if you like, we can go and see the movie, and we'll go out to like a Vietnamese restaurant. We'll have dinner. And they said, "Oh, let's do it. Let's do it." And we had the best time. I mean, most of the movie, that movie is full of subtleties, and most of
Yep.
it flew over their heads. But we all had a great time. So I love that movie.
Yeah, I said to Alan there at the when we were concluding the interview, I said, who said this was going to get a Blu-ray release again? Who said it?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's all about the do re mi.
Oh,
It's about the,
I love ribbon him, and I gotta get him on here again next year for the 45th for Rock and Roll High School. But
yeah,
I
yeah.
like Alan a lot, you know. I know where he was that night, you know, that night that he didn't make it. He was ripping tickets for mice at concerts.
There you go. Yeah, there you go.
I love Alan. I love Alan. I really do. And I'm so glad this got the Blu-ray release. But I just have fun ribbing him on that. I said, Didn't you say it would never?" And who is on that now?"
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've seen all the extras, right? You've seen the
Oh
after
yeah.
party. Yeah. I
Yep.
mean, it's amazing to see all those guys, and what they look like and what they have to say. I mean, that was the most joyous film set I've ever been on. I would go to that set even days when I wasn't working, and just hang out with the grips and the electricians just because it was so much fun. And other actors would too. I mean, like you'd go into the makeup trailer and there'd be actors who weren't even on the movie, you know. You remember Charlie's Angels? Remember that TV show?
Oh yeah.
One of the Charlie's Angels, I think, was like going through a divorce or something, and she was there like 2 weeks running. She's like hanging out in the makeup trailer. Oh my God! Like, oh hey, good morning, how are you? And it was just every day was like a magic carpet ride. It's sort of like, oh, who's showing up on the set today? Oh, Lou Reed, great. Robin Densmore from Ray Krieger from The Doors, great. Who's there? Howard Kaylan. I mean, it was amazing.
Talk about your role in the movie, and we'll start with this. Why not? Talk about your role in the movie and how you get cast in it.
You get crazy?
Yeah.
Well, that was pretty easy. I mean, they sent me the script, and I liked it. And basically, I had a meeting, with Alan. I mean, that was like the way an actor wants it to be. There was no like audition. I mean, I think he knew my work. He must have known my work. And he just said, you want to do it? And I said, absolutely, I want to do it. And I played like this real nasty square guy, but I love playing the bad guys, with the sharp suits and the hair and the makeup and everything, and the tan. I went into a tanning booth. I tried to get like a real Hollywood tan for that. And, I mean, it was like we were just on the same page. I mean, the vibe was right. And that's, people that have the soul of a man like Alan, I think they cast on kind of instinct. And,
Hmm.
you just hope that the faith they show in you, that you don't disappoint him when you're on the set. I mean, it's the same thing with Milos Foreman. It's like you just feel so lucky to be chosen to be a part of this that you'll do anything. What do you want me to do now? Okay, get run over thrown out of a helicopter? Sure. Run over by the Hells Angels? You bet. Let's do that. And
Hmm.
also, Alan, much like Milos Forman, is very open to improvisation, very open to, hey, could I do this? What if we did that? How about this? How about that? So it was really fun that way. So I
Oh
mean,
yeah. Well, this was a fun movie, you know. So I actually watched it last night in preparation for this, but
yeah,
yeah. after doing getting done my all night shift at work, and
There you go.
yeah,
Well,
this could
I mean,
play.
I was in those crowd scenes where the audience, I,
Yeah.
I was in those because it was just like I said, you just want to show up. Hey, we need more extras. Don't do the hair, don't do the thing. Just get up in the balcony, and is great. And you saw Alan's cameo where he's up there throwing frisbees and stuff from the balcony.
Of
His,
course.
yeah, he has a Hitchcock moment. Yeah, so no, it was fun. It was fun, and then when you heard the soundtrack. I mean, those the acts on stage. And you know who was like one of the most amazing people on that set was Lee Ving from Fear.
Oh, Lee, you know what? I've been wanting to get him on here, and I've never been able to do it. But
He's not an easy guy to pin down, but and I just read yesterday. Apparently, Fear was on Saturday Night Live at John Belushi's insistence, and they were banned. Now I don't know what they did, but I don't remember them being on there. But they were like really wrecked the joint. But Lee Ving, like you talk to him, he's like this really funny, like kind of down to earth, normal guy. And then he goes out on stage and he's like, ripping his chest with barbed wire, and he told me he had the Go-Go's over to his house and he found a dead rat and he grilled it along with the hot dogs and put it in a bun and gave it to one of the Go-Go's.
oh
Whether it's
wow.
true or not, it's like a great story. So
Oh, hilarious. No, this movie is so great. It could play a great double billing with Rock and Roll High School, you know?
for sure.
Absolutely. But nonetheless, I'm going to tell you what I remember most about Crazy. And, and it, because when I got it on Blu-ray, I hadn't seen it in a while beforehand, but made enough of an impression that I got the Blu-ray. And I remember so well because I love A Clockwork Orange and I love Malcolm McDowell in A Clockwork Orange. And I was like, I remember him talking to his penis in the washroom because he's so high on
Yeah,
drugs. In
yeah.
the movie, it was just one of the funniest things.
Well, it's a movie where a guy has a talking penis. And it's funny because early on, when I saw Alan and I said, before it was released, I said, well, how are people reacting to it? Because, it's kind of odd. You think it's going to be one thing and it's something else. And there's so many satirical elements to it. And he said, you go to a screening and a movie starts and nobody can really figure out what it is. And the whole thing with the spaceship coming down
Uh-huh.
in the theater, he said that nobody can figure it out until you and your character makes his entrance. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, you come out there and you're like in the sharp suit and you're like this. And then he said, you kick the dog. And I went, yeah, right, because that was in the
I
script.
got such
Yeah.
a
And he said,
I
he
got
said,
I forgot about that, and I laughed so hard at it last night. You kick the dog and the dog does a
yeah.
somersault.
Yeah, but he said that's when people understand what kind of a movie it is. This is a movie where you're going to kick the dog, and it's like through the air. And so, it's funny. I mean, there's movies like that. Hair has a moment like that too, which is. I mean, do you remember Hair? Have you seen Hair recently?
We're going to talk about that. Yep.
Okay, well, Hair is one of my it's one of my favorite movies of all time. A highly
Uh-huh.
underrated movie, one of the best movie musicals ever. But it starts very quiet in Oklahoma, and it's foggy, and this family puts their son on the bus, and they're scratching in the dirt, and they're not talking much. And he gets on the bus, and then the music starts, bada bada boom, 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 right? And he's going through like Amish country, and then the trumpets start, and he's in New Jersey, and then you see like New York City skyline, and you hear like ba 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 ba, and it's like building up to something, and then the bus goes into a tunnel, right? And the screen goes black, and then you see these flames, and it's Berger and the group, and the music's playing in the background, and they're burning their draft cards, and then all of a sudden it's the age of Aquarius, and that incredible shot on the gimbal with the beautiful girl, and the camera's mounted here, and they're on a thing that goes like this, and that whole apparatus is on a thing that goes like this. So she's just swirling around and she's singing that beautiful song, and you're just like, what the fuck is going on here? And then you cut to the dancers, and the dancers are being watched by these policemen that they've established, clop, clop, clop. And then the horses start dancing. And you go, oh, right, this is a world where the horses dance. Got it. And if you buy that, your ticket is punched and you're off for a joyride. But there's got to be those movies that are like bringing you their own world or world of their own
Hmm.
creation. There's got to be that moment where it's like you're not in Kansas anymore. You know,
No.
Ding dong, the witch is dead. This is where you are. And so anyway, so forget Crazy Alan said when I kicked the dog, that was it. Which I'm honored.
He shows that extra shot of the dog barking to show that the dog's okay, but like I mean, you do a lot of fun stuff in that because I mean, you're kissing up to Ed Begley Jr., and those two guys that seem to agree regardless of what he's saying.
Those two guys, you know who those two guys are? Those two guys were huge pop stars in the 60s. That's Bobby Sherman and Fabian. Oh my God.
Oh
Fabian
wow,
Fabian
yes.
Forte, that's who the Idol Maker is about Fabian Forte. And Bobby Sherman was like the pop star, at Teen 16 magazine.
I
And
know, I know the names. I just didn't pick up on that.
we're too young.
Yeah. Well, I was born in 1972, so I grew up with a lot of this music. It's very nostalgic for me, but with Get Crazy, like like you talk about off the wall. I mean, you get a marijuana joint sitting in the audience, and
Exactly.
but you
But how
get
about how about Lou Reed? How about Lou Reed? Excuse me. How
Lou
about
Reed,
Lou
yes.
Reed as Bob Dylan? Come on, please. And I'll tell you a story about that. I was doing a play in Philadelphia on the campus of the University of Pennsylvania. They have a theater, a building, and it's round. It's in the round, and there are theaters like here and here and here all around. But the backstage has a corridor that goes all the way around. It's called the Annenberg Center. So the play I was doing was in a theater over here, and my dressing room was over here. And part of the play, I had to like have an argument and exit. And then the next scene was like, hey, where did he go? Where did he disappear to? I don't know. He ran out into the night. And then my next entrance, it turns out I'd gone and gotten mugged and beat up. So I had to like run to my dressing room, put on all this makeup that looked like bruises and cuts and stuff, and run back in time to make the entrance. Okay, so Laurie Anderson was doing one of her shows, and her dressing room was in between my dressing room and the theater, so and the stage door. So I would run back, and the timing was such that she was at intermission on her show, and we were in the middle. So like for a week, I'd run, and she'd be standing in the doorway of her dressing room, smoking a cigarette, looking at me, and I'd go like this, and I'd run by, and then she'd be there, and I'd go running past with all these bruises. And it was just like I like that. I'm a huge Laurie Anderson fan. I mean, just the fact that she like acknowledged my existence. I am not worthy. Anyway, so I'm at a party and somebody taps on my shoulder and I turn around and it's Laurie Anderson, and she says, "What's your name?" And I said, "My name is Miles." And she goes, "Well, God, what is going on with that? Why are you going back and forth?" And I said, "Well, it's this play that we're doing like this." And then I said, "So listen, I gotta say something to you." And she goes, "What's that?" And I said, "Your boyfriend and I were in the same movie at different times, and I never got to meet him on the set." And she goes, "Really? What was that?" And I said, "Well, it was a movie called Get Crazy. And we were told that Lou Reed was going to be in it, but he didn't want any extra men on the set. So we were forbidden to come to the set that day when Lou was working." And she started laughing and she said, "Oh, you got to tell Lou that." And then she goes, "Lou?" And this guy turns around and goes, "Yeah." And he comes over and like by this time, like my heart is going kabang, kabang. Because, I mean, Lou Reed, please. And one of the things that early on I bonded with Alan Archbishop was how wonderful Lou Reed is, because that album, The Blue Mask, and he and I both knew all the words. That's the thing about Alan is he knows all the words. He's a real fan. And so then to have Lou Reed and Laurie Anderson, and it was just like, oh my God. It's moments like that I just cherish. And my also there are very few people. This is why I love doing these kinds of things. There's very few people that can appreciate that. I got two kids. They could care less. I try to say, you got to listen to this or watch this movie. They don't care. They're into their own things. But that's my Lou Reed story. The late Lou Reed.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, I gotta wonder, do you still get asked to run out and get hot dogs anymore?
No, no, no. I mean that was very, very little. It's funny that the fan stuff from Get Crazy. That's actually that's a really interesting question. Okay, so the character that you play is very much will set the tenor for what kind of fan stuff interaction there is, you know? Um, and with Get Crazy, people always saying, "Why'd you kick that dog? Why did you kick that little dog? That dog never did anything to you." And I'd have to explain, you know, that was the gateway to the movie. Um, but Hair, I used to get people that would come up to me and say, "Hey, dude, let me ask you a question, man. Like, you know, like, why did you let those creeps steal your car?" And one time I was waiting online to see a documentary about The Who, you know, the band The Who.
Yep.
And this guy comes up and he's like half drunk. He's like, "You're that guy. You're that guy." Yeah, I'm that guy. And I was with a bunch of friends. And they said, "Well, let me ask you something, man. Why'd you let those creeps steal your car?" And one of the women I was with said, "Excuse me, I'm not sure you understand. He was the creep. You know, those other guys, they were the stars of the, oh no, man, they were like creeps." So, you know, it's just everybody has their own takeaway and they react differently, you know. If you play a villain, they think you are a villain, you know.
I thought it was funny, the door got closed on you and those hot dogs are
Yeah.
splattered on that suit you're wearing.
But if you see, there's a continuity problem there because if you notice, fun facts to know and tell next time you see this. When the door is closing, I actually turn around and try to block the door so the hot dogs go splat on the glass. But
Oh, that's right.
when you cut
Yes.
back to me, they're on my lapels. So there's a continuity thing there.
That is correct. That is right.
But no one's ever said, you know, because we already had the jacket established, you know, with the stains on it. So, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course, with all the hell your character goes through with in this movie, as much as we're not supposed to like him, we kind of do like him in that Daffy Duck kind of way.
Yeah, Sammy. Well, he's kind of helpless. And then when he gets dosed, it's like, okay, now he's flying high.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
That was all improvised. That was all improvised. And my favorite line in the whole movie is when Howard Kalin is like talking to me because I'm a Howard Kalin fan for years because he worked with Frank Zappa, who's one of my heroes. Not to mention the Turtles. I mean, come on. And so Howard's talking, and then he turns and goes, "Yeah, the little creep put it in the spaceship." It's like, what's it like? It's like I'm just like babbling on about something. He goes, "Yeah, the little creep put it in the spaceship." I love that. That's my favorite moment in the movie. So yeah.
And
And Robert Picardo, who plays the
yeah,
fireman, he and I were old friends, and we never worked together before. So we were like, okay, we finally get to do a scene. So we really enjoyed like playing that scene together. You know, I mean that's the fun of it. That's the fun of doing stuff like that. You know, it was great.
well, Get Crazy celebrates its 40th anniversary this year.
Please, please. I know we're all getting old. There we go.
40th anniversary. I gotta say, I love that poster art.
You do. I can't stand it. To me, they when they released it originally, they put it out at the end of August and they just dumped it, as you know, because you've seen the trailers from hell about it. And because they wanted to lose money on it. And your last chance to party this summer, I mean, I don't know, it was just kind of lame. It just didn't tell you what you were in for. You know, the poster for Rock and Roll High School was Mort Drucker, I think. It was like completely chaotic and it was
Hmm.
just like insane. That's not insane. That's like Valley Party Girl or something. I don't know. It doesn't matter to me. But that is the original artwork for the movie, that they used.
Yeah. Well, I love Get Crazy. I have a lot of fun with it. And of course, you got so many uh I love the bands that come in there and play, and you get the hippies and then you get the female band. And of course you got Malcolm McDowell comes up there.
Yeah, Malcolm McDowell. I mean, my God, he's Mick Jagger. It's amazing, and he did all his own singing, and but I mean, it's like they were types. I mean, you got the punk band type, and you got the girl band type, and you've got the established headlining rock act type, and you got the King Blues Man type, and then the Jews band, those
Yeah.
guys. It's just, I mean, it's something for everybody in there. It's great.
Yep, and of course you got Ving, as you established,
Yeah. There's also
being
there's an
crazy.
actor in that movie named Barry Diamond who's all over the place. And was a stand-up comedian. And he's the guy who, when they say bomb, bomb, and he goes, I got the bomb, man. That's Barry Diamond. And he had this ad lib in the scene where they're at the graveyard in the beginning with King Blues. And he's saying, Lord, I'm gonna wax your ass. And then the camera pulls back, and all the people around the grave are blind. Incredibly racist. You can't get away with that stuff now. Incredibly unwoke. And then one of them is like falls into the grave, the open grave. And if you listen, Barry Diamond did a looping group. I mean, you know what looping group is, right? It's ADR replacement. And you can hear him go, he's the voice of the guy that falls into the grave. And he's like, yo, hey, he says, where is the T at? And then he falls into the grave. Where's the T at? So anyway,
Hilarious,
fun little thing to
hilarious.
listen for. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, this movie was chaotic. Of course, you get Paul Bartel and Mary Warnov was in this as well. Two other um, pals of Alan Arkish, and
I didn't really know their work. I mean, the way they were respected on the set, I did a quick study, and then about a month after that movie was finished filming, Eating Raoul came out.
hmm
And I remember going to see it because it was playing at a theater that was around the corner from where my parents lived and where I grew up. I mean, I was living away from them at that time, but it was playing at the 68th Street Playhouse at 3rd Avenue and 68th Street. And I had seen it, but the opening day, I forget how I had seen it before, but I walked around the theater and there was a line for it. And then across the street was Paul Bartels in a three-piece corduroy suit, just sort of looking and beaming. And I crossed the street and I hugged him and I said, what do you think? And he goes, that's really nice. It's like, look at all those people. And I said, yeah, I mean,
Yep.
that movie's having a bit of a renaissance now too.
hmm
Eating Raoul. I just saw something about it last week. I'd like to see that again.
I don't know. Like I heard she's really private, but
Mary? I don't
it'd
think
be
she's with
nice.
us. I don't think she's with us anymore.
Oh,
I think
she's still alive.
she is. Oh, great. Yeah. Well, then she is really private because she hasn't. Yeah.
Because I'd be like, she'd be a major hit at the cons. I mean, she was Miss Togar in Rock and Roll High School,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Like,
I don't think she wants anything to do with that stuff.
yeah, but Alan Arkish, like, I've had fun interviewing him over the years, and boy, I enjoyed ribbing him over this as like he's like, yes, Greg, you predicted it. You predicted it.
There you go.
I had to throw that at him, but yeah, but I love the movie, and it like I said, and your character really in the long run, you're supposed to be the heel, but really when all said is done, you're really just somebody trying to get through in
Inherit.
life.
Trying to
Yeah,
inherit. But thank you, Greg. I appreciate that. That's great.
yeah, because you're really in a way, you're really not the villain. A kiss ass maybe, but
But that's the key as an actor. I mean, you don't play a villain. I mean,
hmm
you're just playing a character. It's
yeah.
not up to you to decide if he's a villain or not. I mean, unless you're doing like, some kind of stylish, snidely whiplash, yeah, with a mustache out to here. You can't, you have to love the characters you play. You have to, you have to love them. How can you be them if you don't love them?
Yeah, but what an amazing movie. 40 years. Get crazy. I love this movie, and I'm glad it's got a cult following now. I would have been 11 when that came out, but I didn't see it in the theater, so I'm unaware of what its box office was like, but
No, that was the whole thing is they wanted to lose money. They had to lose money. It was a tax loss. It was a tax write-off. It would have been worse if they'd made money on it. That's what Alan explains in his Trailers from Hell. They had to release it, but it's sort of like Warner Brothers writing off, Batgirl. They'd rather have a, $100 million tax write-off than release a movie that's going to, do whatever it's going to do at the box office. Crazy. This was through the
Yeah.
lens last time. Yeah.
Well, it's got a resurgence now. Although that tax write-off thing did not work on Porky's. I know that. That backfired
No, that
on
was a
them.
hit. Yeah, if they were trying to
Mm.
do the same thing, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. But you mentioned Hair. Let's go back to Hair because I mean that had the absolutely gorgeous Beverly D'Angelo. Speaking of beautiful women,
Sure.
um, uh, music to me, you get certain types of music in a movie, and it's totally nostalgic for me. And you got Hair, you got Angel Aquarius, various other tunes. And of course, it's bringing back a time when, well, like I said, I was born in 1972, so the Woodstock time was I just missed that.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I love being able to watch movies like this and get a kind of a hint on what it was like because movies are like time capsules that way. Um, Talk about working on here and Milos Foreman in particular, because I mean, you worked on The People versus Larry Flynt as well.
And Man on the Moon.
Man on the Moon, yes, I saw People versus Larry Flynt and Man on the Moon both in the theater.
And I'll tell you something that, I mean, I say it in interviews, but it's kind of embarrassing. I was his second choice to play Mozart in Amadeus.
Oh wow.
That was an oh wow. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so Hair. Let's talk about Hair first. The thing about Hair was when we filmed it, it was a period picture.
Hmm.
Now, the period that it depicted was only about 8 or 10 years earlier, but it was a very, very specific period in American history. And people couldn't figure that out. It was like too soon in a way, because it's like Vietnam, the war was over then, but we were sort of hadn't really dealt with the ramifications of it. And it was like hippies, and yet we're into the me decade and like, yeah, but with it's got to be almost 40 years or more than 40 years at this point. You see it now and you realize that it is a period picture and it is set in 1967, 68, and you get it. You don't have that problem. Now, the other thing about Hair is that the musical Hair um, basically is very little there. I mean, I don't know, if you like musical theater a lot, but you got the score, the music, and you got the lyrics, and then you got the book, the script,
Hmm.
right? All the other words. And the script is where, like Fiddler on the Roof, right? You've got all the songs about tradition and sunrise, sunset, and If I Were a Rich Man, but the story is about this Jewish milkman and his daughters in the shtetls of Galatia. That all comes out in the book. My point is that Hair has no book. There's no like story. There's no there. So when Milos, who was very prominent at that time, because he just, he won like every Oscar for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It was a big deal. His next movie is going to be Hair. Wow. And he had anything he wanted, basically. Now, Milos is the greatest collaborator I ever worked with. I mean, Milos not only brings the best out of people, but he wants you to give the best. And if you're writing something and he's writing it with you, he doesn't want credit. He just wants it to be really, really good. And he comes from a cinema that's impoverished, because those Czech movies, they had like no money and they had to borrow film and it was tremendously limited in what they could do. So he always wanted to work really closely with the writers. Okay. And so the story goes that when it was announced that Milos Forman is doing Hair and he's talking to writers about it, every writer in the movies wanted to have a meeting with Milos Forman. And they would come in and they would say, okay, this is the way I see it. We're in Greenwich Village and then we were in Long Island or whatever it was, their vision of it. And he would say, thank you, thank you. And then Michael Weller, who was a very distinguished playwright, came in. And I asked Michael if his story is true. And he said, well, yeah, pretty much true. Um, but so they go in and Michael is there and there's not much to say. And Milos says, so what do you think? And Michael says, what do you mean? What do I think? He goes, well, hair. How are you going to turn this into a movie? And Michael Weller said, honestly, I don't have a fucking clue. And Milos laughed and he goes, yes, you're the one I want to work with. And so the two of them worked out this very strong story about Claude Hooper Bukowski coming to New York City, falling in with these hippies on the day he's supposed to be inducted for the draft, taking the LSD, falling in love with the society girl and her wacky family, and then, the whole thing. And then the swaparoo at the very end where they try to spring him for a picnic and Berger cuts his hair and ends up being shot off to Vietnam and dead, and that's all like in the last 5 minutes. It's extremely moving. I mean, I see that movie now and the tears come down, not for nostalgia or not because, we were so innocent then. It was just that this is such powerful filmmaking. There's a scene where these troops are marching in one of those airplanes where the thing comes down and you march up into the airplane, and they're basically marching into darkness. And it's, the music is very solemn. We stop, look at one another, short of breath. And it's just like, this is what the movies are all about. I mean, this is like the music, the image, the darkness, like, oh my God, it hits you like a ton of bricks. And Milos was very proud of that movie, because he's not American, he's from Czechoslovakia. And this is his adopted country. And he really was amazingly insightful about American culture. And so for him to do that movie to begin with was a ballsy choice, both for the producers to give it to him and for him to say, I want to do this. And you know what he did right after that? He did Ragtime, which is like one of the great American novels. So Milos Forman, wowie zowie. Anybody who has, and we have like a cult of Milos Forman. We had a little get together about a year ago at Columbia University, and people telling stories about working with Milos, and it's just to a person. I mean, everybody from F. Murray Abraham to Elizabeth McGovern, to me, I was like to Baryshnikov, Mikhail Baryshnikov. We all had these like loving stories about this man's generosity, generosity of spirit, generosity of artistic collaboration, and just it's just like walking out on a very still lake, and you can walk on water when he was around, and I really regret. That I'm reminded of that old story. I guess it was Billy Wilder and somebody else. You probably have heard this story when Ernst Lubitsch died, and they were walking away from Ernst Lubitsch's funeral. Do you know this story? Okay, so they're walking away from Ernst Lubitsch's his funeral, and one of the directors turns to Billy Wilder and says, "It's very sad. No more Lubitsch." And Billy Wilder turns and goes, even worse, no more Lubitsch movies. So it's like, no more Milos, no more Milos Forman movies. So there you go. I mean, I feel privileged to have been able to be invited to be part of his team a couple of times, and the felt that he had that, that belief in me. Just astonishing. I mean, the fact that he would, come and, I mean, the first time he was very rigorous about his casting process too. Very, very rigorous. So for hair, I mean, oh my God, I had a meeting, and then I had a reading with Treat Williams, and then we did a screen test in Central Park with Treat and with Beverly. And then like 3 weeks later, I got a phone call. They want me to do it. And for Amadeus, I mean, oh my God, I flew to California, and that was like full dress. I mean, the wig, I was wearing Tyrone Power's wardrobe, the MGM wardrobe, Tyrone Power. And I'd screen tested with Dominic Dunn's sister, Dominique Dunn, who got murdered like a week later. And Kenneth McMillan, Kenny McMillan, the great character actor. But by the time we did People versus Larry Flynt, he sent me the script. And then they called me and they said he wanted a meeting. And I said, course. So I went up to his apartment, and we sat there. We talked about books for like a half an hour, because I was working on a book, and he had just purchased a Joseph Conrad autographed manuscript, and we were talking about how amazing it is because Joseph Conrad uh, was Polish, and his native language was Polish, but he wrote in English, and his prose was just so amazing. And Milos is Czech, but he works on these Americans. So we're talking about this, and then like there was like a pause, and he goes, "So did you read the script?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I've read the script." He goes, "What do you think?" I said, "The story blows my mind. I never knew half this stuff." And he goes, "Good, good, good. That's the point. So you want to do it?" And I said, "Milos, please. Of course I want to do this." He goes, "Good, good, 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 good." So he ended up, and he said, "I'm not sure who I want you to play yet. And he was going to have Steve Buscemi, who was one of my favorite
Yep.
actors, be in it. But Steve couldn't do it at the last minute, so he got what's his name? The character actor, Glover, Crispin Glover. You know,
Oh yeah, Crispin Glover. Yes, he was in Back to the Future and Friday the 13th, the final chapter, doing that
yeah,
awesome dance.
yeah. And so Crispin came in, and Crispin was amazing because I had worked with Crispin's father.
I
Um,
know I've had Bruce on here a couple
yeah,
times.
yeah, that's the Beast and Children. So we got along, and also people that have worked with Milos before know that he's like very improvisatory, and he loves actors, and he wants to hear what we have to do. But it's a cliche among actors that you want to be truthful, living truthfully in imagined circumstances. That's a lot of people how they define acting. But with Milos, it wasn't only just being truthful; it was being interesting, being honest and interesting. I mean, I'll never forget that we shot that scene where I Got Life, that song where Treat's up and dancing up and down the table and smashing all the dishes, and there were all these extras, and he had like 8 cameras rolling because he wanted to get everything. That's the way, and then he would go into the cutting room and make the movie. But if you were doing something interesting, he you know saw everything, and he would say to the cameraman, that girl, this guy, and there was this one extra who just like made a choice that his character was going to fall asleep, and he just every take he would just fall asleep like this. Well, so we shot that scene, and then the picture went to California to do those scenes, and then they came back like 3 months later, and we did the LSD trip sequence, with the church and everybody's flying in and out, and I'm in that, and they brought that guy back. And he said he couldn't believe it. He was like an extra. He like had like 6 days of work on this movie as an extra. And then 3 months later, they call him back, and all of a sudden he's got a role in this movie. Why? Because he was interesting. He did something that was interesting. So Milos, and like Alan Arkush, wanted, he wanted you to contribute. So a lot of the dialogue is made up. A lot of it is improvised. But because it's movies, it's got to cut. So you've got to be consistent. You can't just. I mean, I've worked with Robin Williams, and it's really hard for the editors because he just everything goes in every direction every time, and it's really hard.
Yep.
So I mean, that's
I
not
love Robin
well,
Williams.
I love about Robin Williams. But if you want it to edit, you got to kind of do the same things at the same time. You got to put the glass down when you say that line. You got to do these kinds of things. So there were times with Milos where we'd be doing these scenes where you'd have like 2 or 3 of us, like Vincent Schiavelli, that really funny looking guy who was in what was it? He plays the teacher who takes all the class to an autopsy.
Oh, Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
So
switched to Sanka.
yeah. So Vinny Mueller said, "Oh, when you come to Memphis where we shoot this, you'll meet Vinny. You'll like Vinny." And Vinny Schiavelli and I got along like famously. So we would do these scenes where it was like 2 or 3 actors that had worked with Milos a couple of times that Milos trusted, and then there'd be a couple of actors who had lines and parts. And then there'd be like all the extras, and Milos would say things like, "Okay, so we're gonna do this, and just make sure because these guys are gonna talk a little bit, and don't step on their lines. And then this guy, he's got to get his line out. But basically, if you have anything you want to say, you can say it. Just don't cover when he says that line." And like these people, they didn't know what was going on, and then he would say, "Oh, just ask Vinny." Or ask Miles, they'll tell you what to do. And then we would kind of explain, okay, this is the way so that they can edit it. We would do this. And when I was in Man on the Moon, I mean, my one shot in the movie, I'm standing with Lorne Michaels,
Hmm.
from Saturday Night Live, and we're standing in Studio 8H in Rockefeller Center. And the scene we're shooting is a recreation of the first broadcast of Saturday Night Live, where Andy Kaufman was the guest, right? And I'm playing a network executive, and Lorne Michaels is playing Lorne Michaels. And so Milos does this same thing. He's like, okay, here you are, and you're watching the monitor, and it's Jim Carrey is doing this, Andy Kaufman is doing this, and he turns and he walks away. And Lauren Michaels said, "Oh, Milos, what are we supposed to say anything? Do you want us to react to anything?" And he goes, "Oh, whatever you want to do, just ask Miles." So I said, look, we're going to be on mic, and if you've got some, we'll just roll it. We'll do a couple of takes, and if you're moved to say anything, I got something I'm going to say. You can just react to that. And so the one line I had was my line. It's like this is dead air. This is like dead. There's nothing going on. You know. So it's funny. But I mean, Milos Forman and any performer or anybody who loves movies, you count yourself lucky if you get to be in one of his.
Well, he was really good at taking either real individuals or characters that's got really dark past, very complicated characters, like Jack Nicholson in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. But I mean,
Yeah,
Amadeus, People versus Larry Flynt, Men on the Moon.
yeah,
He takes these people that are larger than life and brings out their inner demons,
yeah,
so to
yeah,
speak. And
yeah.
he was really, really terrific at doing that.
And making it real too. I mean,
Yeah.
Valmont, same thing with that British actor. I forget who's like a shit, but he's kind of sympathetic in that. And then Goya's Ghosts with the painter Goya, and Javier Bardem in that movie, playing this real evil person. Oh, but Milos was, they just, they broke the mold. I mean.
And rest in peace, Treat Williams. We lost him this year.
Yeah, that was weird. That was weird. He shouldn't have been riding his motorcycle, on a slick road or whatever it was. But Treat's a force of nature.
Yeah. No, Hair is great. I have not seen this next movie, but watching the trailer, I've got to see it. I have to see it
Which one?
because after seeing Conan the Barbarian, I gotta say Valerie Quinessa is one of the most gorgeous women I've ever laid eyes on.
Yes, Lord.
French Postcards. The trailer grabbed me, and I'm like, I gotta see this movie now. Please talk about that.
Well, okay, so I'll confess it's my favorite movie of all the movies I've done.
Okay, whet my appetite. Whet my
Yeah,
appetite.
yeah. I mean, it's a really, really delightful small movie. And I mean, it was one of the best character. I remember reading the script thinking, well, I should do this. They're going to ask me to do this. I'm going to do this movie. And it's going to be at least 5 years before I get to do another movie with a part like this. And I've never got asked to do another movie with a part like that again. Um, it's when you track it down, make sure you get because again with the music rights, they had a problem with the DVD
I
release.
actually read that last night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you can get the version original, if you can, because the music is really important. And when I tell you why, you'll get it. Did you ever see American Graffiti?
Yes, I've got it here actually.
So you know how important music is in American Graffiti, right?
Yep.
Willard Hike and Gloria Katz, who wrote it, Willard directed it, and Gloria produced it. They wrote American Graffiti, and they went to film school with George Lucas.
Hmm.
Um, And so that same idea of music kind of not wall to wall the way it is in American Graffiti, because that's all one night. And the music is like all, Wolfman Jack. But the idea of comedy with the music. I mean, I'll give you an example. The opening of it is like Welcome to Paris. It's about American students on a junior year abroad. So it's welcome students, and it's Mary Fospesier, this incredibly beautiful woman on a bus, and she's got a microphone, and there's all kinds of feedback, and the bus driver's going, oh la la, oh, c'est dégueulasse.
I did watch that scene. Yeah.
Well, what happens is that she finally says, the bus driver looks at her and goes, enough with this, and he puts in a cassette, and that's when the music starts, and that's the credit sequence. And so they said, what we've done is we've hired this French band to do a French cover version of the Love and Spoonful song, Do You Believe in Magic? And when this comes on, we want this to be the loudest song ever in the movies. And they didn't get that, but it's Crois-tu dans la magie? And so it's and that's the moment that sets the tone. This is the world you're in. We were talking about that earlier. That's a moment in that movie where you just say, okay, this is the world that this movie takes place in, where the Frenchies are listening to American rock and roll, and the Americans are like, the subtle sophistication of French culture. But it's a wonderful movie. I mean, we shot it in Paris. My God, and there was a James Bond movie that was filming in Paris at the same time. And that A Little Romance, that George Roy Hill movie, they had just left. So there was no studio space available. So we had to shoot the whole thing on location, which was wonderful. So it was very pared down, all French crew. The DP, director of photography, he also operated the camera, and everybody was doing 6 jobs. And, we're all these, like every French actor in the book was in it. I mean, we'd shoot in public with Jean Rochefort, who was like a huge, huge star in France. In America, nobody knew him, but like naked women, literally naked women, oh je la ba la ba, in windows like this, taking off their clothing and stuff. Amazing. Marie France-Pizier. Anyway, it's a delightful movie. Deborah Winger is in it, but she's very small part. But she was there for a long while, which was really a heartbreaker because she's such a good actress, that a lot of her stuff.
Baker.
Blanche Baker, David Marshall Grant, who's a very good actor.
Mm-hmm.
And a bunch of really good, mostly French, but a bunch of good Americans, it was a gas. It was a lot of fun. And I love the movie. It's my kind of humor too. I mean, Willard Hike and I, we're still friends. I saw him just last year out in Hollywood. Scenes like a guy trying to pick up a French girl, and he thinks he's like being really cool and slick, and he's speaking French, and there are subtitles for like exactly what he's saying in French, only it's in English. Yesterday the weather makes wet, the salt is all gray and the sky falls down, but today everyone is chestnuts. And when I read that in the script, it was like, oh, I get it, because I speak French, and it's like, if you don't pronounce the words well, le ciel est tout gris, the salt is all gray, et le sel tombe, ciel is sky, sel is salt, they're similar. So these kind of mistakes, and also the cross cultural things, Americans making fun of the French making fun of Americans. It was delightful. Unfortunately, it opened like the same week as Breaking Away, and there's only so much room in the American movie-going public imagination for a sweet little movie about adolescence, and Breaking Away, they got the heat. We didn't get the heat. They got the reviews, and we get some good reviews, but we didn't get great reviews. And then I worked with Danny Stern, who was in Breaking Away, and we kind of shared about that, because he was like, yeah, no, you guys, that was a really good movie. And I said, oh yeah, but you guys, you grabbed the torch. And he was like, yeah, I guess so, but here we are.
You got work with Valerie Quinnesson. I probably would have been sweating goosebumps if I
Well, she
left us way too soon too, unfortunately.
Yeah, Valerie is very special, very, very, very special. I mean, there's a Facebook group dedicated to her that I sometimes pay attention to. There's a little bit of weird fansmanship, because there's people my age that kind of have a fixation on her, and it's like, dude, she's no longer around, And people will go like make pilgrimages to the house in Greece where they shot Summer Lovers, But Valerie, if you'll notice when you see the movie, Valerie she was sort of like you could see me like holding on to her a lot. It's just so that she doesn't fall down, and like pulling her into the light. She didn't have a lot of film technique, but we completely trusted each other, and we were quite loving with each other. So we just we got along. It was really wonderful. I mean, and then she came to New York a couple of times, and she got involved with some really weird people up at Columbia University, and then she got married and she got killed in that, and it was like a freak accident. And then one day, I guess it must have been on the Facebook group about her. It had something about her kids, and it was
Mhm.
something about her. She's got a son and a daughter, and I tracked down her son, and I sent him a note, and I just said, "Listen, I don't know if you know me, but this is my name, and I worked with your mother on this movie, and I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. I really quite loved her." And he got back to me like right away, and it goes, "Oh my God, of course I know who you are. Of course I know that movie. She loved that movie. Where are you?" Well, it turns out that he lived like 15-minute walk from where I live. So I said, "Okay, come on over." So he came over to my house, and we sat. I mean, it wasn't this house. It was down the block because I've lived on this block for 30 years. But we sat around this table that I'm sitting at, and I took out my whole uh, folder of like pictures of French postcards, and I said, "You can take anything you want. I mean, literally anything you want from here. Any of these pictures, any of this, press kits, it's all yours." And he was like, "Really, really?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "I've never seen these pictures before." And I said, "Well, that's it. So take some." So he took a couple, and he went back, and then he sent me a note and like, "Thank you so much." And then I said, "And tell your sister the same thing." And I've yet to meet his sister in person, but she's lives in Mexico, and she's an artist, and she's very talented. And I think it's important to sort of keep these connections open. It's meaningful to me, I know, but I think it's important for those guys too. So
I actually had reached out. I reached out to her son to, because a lot of times if somebody has passed away, I do tribute interviews. Like I've had Alfred Hitchcock's granddaughter on here. I had Audrey
yeah,
Hepburn's eldest son on here, for
nice,
example.
nice.
And it allows me to make them part of the show and celebrate their legacy. And
So you know him.
um I reached out. He hasn't been on here. It wasn't a no, but it wasn't a yes either because of, I know he lost his mom so tragically.
Yeah, I mean, he
So
was very young when it happened, and you can't push people with that kind of a thing.
yeah. So
So
I mean, the door's open if he wants to come on. I mean, I'll definitely treat her with respect, but I love Conan the Barbarian, and one of my favorite shots in that movie is towards the end, and you got John Milius does this one shot where just the profile shot of her face as she's slowly turning before it goes to that rousing score of the horses coming, to come after Schwarzenegger and company, and that shot of her face where you could just see the detail of her face. I mean, it's my favorite shot in the movie.
well, it's funny because Gloria Katz and Willard Hike, married couple, they searched long and hard, and nobody in French Postcards was a big star. I mean, like Mandy Patinkin, his first movie, and Deborah Winger had done like one or two things, but we all were good. And so it's a very small world, especially among generational filmmakers. So Milius, Paul Schrader, um, a lot of these guys, George Lucas, Spielberg, they're sort of like not using the same people, but like, "Hey, I hear that, so and so was really good in your movie. What do you think?" And so Valerie, Milius, that's where he found her, and called him up and said, "What would she like to work with?" "Oh, don't worry, you're not gonna have a problem. And Deborah Winger too. What's his name? Who did Urban Cowboy? I mean, the
Hmm.
story goes that he was nervous because Deborah's a real thoroughbred. I mean, she's very very passionate about her work, um, And he said, is she difficult to work with? And Willard said, no, no, no. She's incredibly passionate. Just, you better have your A game on if you're going to work with her. And they could have said, oh, she's a pain in the ass. Don't hire her, but he didn't. And that was an amazing breakthrough film for her. So it's a small world. It's a small, small world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We got to talk about, of course, the Funhouse, which
Toby Hooper, another
Toby
another
Hooper,
another person who's left us. Yeah, yeah,
and
Toby.
I got the Blu-ray for that here too.
Yeah. Oh, hold that up. Let me see that. Let me push that up. Hold it up to the camera, though. Let me see that. Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Trying, hopefully it doesn't fade out on, huh?
No, no, that's it. Yeah, that did just then. Yeah, no, I've seen that version. I may even have that. Yeah, yeah. I saw that 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
I watched it the other night in preparation for this. I totally forgot William Finley is in this movie from Phantom of the Paradise, you
Oh
know?
yeah, no, Bill Finley. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
No, that and Kevin Conway is one of my favorite actors. I think Kevin was one of our country's best actors. No, that movie, if I can say this and not sound self-serving, I was really happy with my work in that movie because
Hmm.
and a lot of that sort of stuff, was improvised, and a lot of it that I'm kind of proud of it because that's a genre movie, obviously. And, when I go to the cons, that's the movie that they really love. That plus Howard the Duck. But it's when I saw it and I just see different things in it and I see things that I was trying to do and see how it worked or how it did or didn't work and how it was all going to be edited and stuff. And yeah, yeah. I mean, Toby was great. I mean, I had a little bit of buzz on me as an actor at that point.
Hmm.
So I was doing a play in New York, and my agent called and said, "Listen, there's this film director. He did this movie called Texas Chainsaw Massacre." And I said, "Well, I've heard of that, but I never saw it." And he goes, "Yeah, well, he's interested in you for his next picture, and he's going to come and see your show tonight, and he wants to know if you'll go out for a beer with him afterwards." And I said, "Of course, absolutely." So he came to see the play, and the play, I mean, we were all doing English accents in the play, and I was like this greaser, and I had my hair all greased up and stuff, and it was actually Welsh accent, which is a tricky one to do. And we went out, and Toby's a madman. I mean, Toby was just a mad genius. And he just, I mean, I never even read the script. He says, you want to be in this movie? And I said, sure, I want to be in a movie. Of course I want to be in a movie. Why would I say no to any movie? And he said, well, you better read the script. So they sent me the script. And, like I say, I'm not a huge genre movie fan, but I said, hey, sounds good to me. And it was not an easy shoot at all, at all, at all, at all, at all. It was not difficult. And it was real tough. And they kind of took it away from Toby. And Toby was having a rough patch, at that time. And they kind of filmed it backwards because they filmed, we had that carnival.
Hmm.
And that carnival, we had them for like 4 weeks or something. So they filmed everything with the carnival first. And they only had like scheduled for like 8 weeks of shooting, but it went over. So we had like 5 weeks of the carnival. And then we had like 3 weeks to shoot all the scary stuff. So they had to cut it back and cut it back. And so it was never really Toby's full vision. But at that point, Toby was not good at articulating his vision. I mean, talk about, directors saying, oh, here, ask Miles, he knows what to do. Toby was doing that all the time. I mean, he would come up and, he would say, because again, between Cooper Huckabee and Largo Woodruff and Beth Barrage and myself, Cooper had done a movie. I don't think Beth Barrage had done a movie. Largo Woodruff, maybe, and I'd done like 8 or 10. So Kobe would come up and he would say things like, okay, this is a crane shot. So we're going to start on you. And then the camera's going to pull back. So I needed to kind of like, skitter or kind of, like spiders, kind of like, but don't, block. Don't stand in front. Just kind of like, you know what I mean? And I'd say, yeah, Toby, I know what you mean. He goes, okay, good, good, good. You guys know? And they would look completely blank. Like, what are you saying? And he said, oh, ask Miles. And so Toby would walk me and I'd say, okay, here's the deal. we have to be in formation because he's going to start, with a close up on you, Beth, and then he's going to pull back slowly. And so we all have to be in the frame. And then once the camera starts going up, we can start wandering around. We can be like spiders. We can kind of, dip, dip, dip around like this, but not until the crane starts going up, oh, okay, but he couldn't like explain it that way, you're under a lot of pressure when you shoot a movie. Yeah. So, and then they kind of filmed it backwards. And then when they cut it together, I don't know. I mean, to me, it's just not scary. I don't know. I hope it works. I mean, do people like it? What do you think of that
Yep.
movie?
I like it. In fact, watching it this time, the experience was a little different because I had never realized that they actually took the time to establish the relationship Elizabeth had with her little brother,
Right.
and then this all the stuff that was going on at the circus there, the amusement park, and
The Carney.
the weird looking animals, like the two-headed cow and this and that. And I was like, okay, I'd forgotten that they really got to appreciate that a little bit. Like I like the scene where they go in and Elizabeth has her hand red and this and that, and you guys were laughing and she flips out, and I'm like, you know what? I'm glad they put stuff like that in here because nowadays, most horror films, it's like, let's just get to the slasher stuff. Let's just get to the horror stuff.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, he let us do that kind of thing. I mean, just that scene you're talking about, with Sylvia Miles as Madame, whatever her name was, and we're kind of sitting there and they say, don't make fun of it. And my character, I'm playing with a deck of tarot cards. And I go, oh no, party, sorry. We don't mean anything. If you notice, I've got the death card that comes up. And I was like, Toby, I got an idea. How about we all have the cards with like the death card? And Toby loved it. He goes, that's great, that's great, that's great. It's just little stuff like that that adds. It's just what you're talking about. I mean, it's just like not, it's more like adding stuff to it. It's not like those Italian pornographic, violent movies with lots of blood everywhere is blood.
So what did he do when your character was done? Was
Yeah,
he lost?
he wouldn't kept bringing me back.
Because I mean, you did hang around,
I get hanged and then I get axed, and yeah, that was fun.
Talk about doing those scenes.
Well, okay, I'll tell you a quick story. I had a friend who did this movie in Poland. It was called The Magician of Lublin.
Hmm.
Alan Arkin was in it, and there's a scene where she was supposed to hang. And I called her up and I said, so what was it like? She said, make sure that the prop guys show you how it's going to be done. And I said, okay, why? And she said, because when I did it in Poland, they said, okay, show me how it works. And they had these sandbags and they said, okay, you're going to wear this vest. And they put the vest around the sandbags and we have this rope. And the rope is going to go around your neck, but there's this wire hidden inside the rope that's going to go into this harness you're wearing. So when we drop you down, you're going to be hanging from the wire inside the rope, but it'll look like you're hanging from the rope. And she goes, well, show me. And they said, okay. So they put the sandbags and they went up and they put it up on the trap and they sprang the trap. And of course, the wire snapped and the sandbags were hanging from the rope. So she said, just make, because she when she saw that, she said, we're not shooting that today. She said, she went to the director and said, I'm not going to die for this movie. So they figured out another way to do it. So when the hanging comes, it was like, okay, how is this going to work? And I like working with the crew because these guys, they're really good. But you'll notice that the thing drops down and I'm like this because I wanted to make sure that I was not actually hanging from whatever, because it was, a thing going down my back and a rope, but it was like this. That's how, in the parlance, you say that's how you make the gag work, right? Because doing this, I could tension the rope so that the tension didn't have to come from above on my neck. The tension could come from down below, because that's when you do stage fighting, if you learn stage fighting, often what you're doing is the opposite of what it looks like you're doing. It's like Bruce Lee's fighting. It's the returning fist. I forget what he called it. Be like water. It's like you take the other guy's energy and you make it work against him. That kind of jujitsu thing. So I'm actually, I'm pulling and it's pulling me up. So I was being pulled up by something behind me, but I'm actually making the gag of the rope work. You follow what I'm saying?
Yep.
Yeah. Because you got to be really careful with that shit. You got to be really, really careful. And then, of course, the axing, that was no problem. I mean, they basically had an axe cut, and it was a piece of metal that it was attached to, and it went down my back, and I had to inflate my chest and like go back and forth like this because I couldn't move my head because the axe was cut, and what sold the gag was fake blood sticking my hair to the axe blade so that there wasn't a gap in there. You know, it's like when you're on a movie set and you have some special effect or some tricky stuff like that. The phrase is, it's the gag. Is the gag working in, this shot? Are we working the gag today? I love that about movies. When we did Howard the Duck, there were a lot of gags working. It's like, oh, is the gag working today? What about, which gag are we going to work today? So, yeah. But Funhouse was like, I think of all the movies I've done, that's the one that's kind of had its biggest effect in the aftermarket. Maybe because the genre aftermarket is so large, and Toby was such a master of that. The only thing I got to see that Toby do before we shot that was Salem's Lot on TV, which is really, really well done. And then while we were down there, he screened Texas Chainsaw Massacre for us, and I thought it was one of the funniest movies I'd ever seen, and he loved that I thought it was a comedy. He thought that was like, he said, "Oh, you get it, you get it." I said, "Oh, it's hilarious. You kidding me? This family with the rubber, the leather. I mean, come on."
I've interviewed a number of people from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Yeah. But what was Elizabeth like?
Elizabeth Barrage?
Yeah.
Well, she was a method actor doing a horror film. And so she tried to like find some kind of emotional reality to watching her boyfriend gets killed by a genetic freak monster. It's like, good luck. And I kept saying, Beth, just do yourself a favor, just go, ah! But she would like go in the corner and like take a nail and stick it into her leg and stuff. I mean, she's a wonderful actress. Don't get me wrong, but she wanted to bring this like emotional truth to it. And how are you going to find an emotional truth for this outrageous, fictional situation? So I feel for her. And then she goes off and does Amadeus, So she got to work with Milos. So she's like, she had her Milos ticket punched. And I think I saw her once after that, and she was like, yeah, that's what we're talking about, that kind of work,
I thought her opening shower scene was hilarious.
I think they added that after the fact. They needed to sex it up a little bit because
Well, the
she's a very
fact that
attractive
it
woman. I mean,
it takes the shower scene, it's actually kind of a reference to Psycho and Halloween because it's shot from the point of view of a mask, but
of course,
the
but it was
aftermath of
yeah.
that was funny.
Yeah, but it was added after filming. That was sort of like, how are we going to make this work in the editing room? And I think that was a reshoot. I'm not sure, but I think it was a reshoot. A very effective one. And to have it end with a gag with the little brother, that sort of sets their relationship up. So it's a
Yeah.
good thing.
And Sylvia Miles, of course, terrific in this. And I'm trying to remember the name of the guy that played the monster in it because he was really
Wayne,
good as, huh?
Wayne Doba. Wayne Doba.
Yes,
He's a
because
fellow countryman of yours.
well, I know Sean Clark, I think, represents him, and I've had Sean on here a couple times. I'd like to get him on here at some point to talk about the
Yeah.
Funhouse, but
Yeah, Wayne is one of the more talented people I've ever worked with. Wayne is astonishing.
and
He lives
so
in
very
Montreal.
sympathetic, huh?
He lives in Montreal,
Oh, wow.
and he's a circus performer. And I mean, he's just, if you could find stuff of his online. I mean, he's brilliant. I mean, I happen to love what they used to call new vaudevillians. You remember,
Mhm.
like 20 years ago or so, people like oh, Michael Meyer, Bill, what's his name? Bill Irwin in America. You know, these guys that are sort of like the clowning traditions, but kind of brought into the postmodern clowning kind of thing. That's what he does, and brilliant. But in terms of like the mime and the physicality, Wayne's amazing, amazing. We pass
And
messages forth on social media. Yeah.
what's that?
Wayne and I, we pass messages back and forth on social media. I haven't seen him in years, but I watch his clips. He works with his wife a lot, and they do a lot of circus performing up in Montreal. So,
Oh, if you don't mind, put in a good word for me. I'd love to have him on here. But I'm going to tell you this. His character was a lot like Frankenstein because in the fact he's very sympathetic because he really doesn't know what he's doing, you know?
oh no, he's just this innocent little boy who's
Yeah.
been abused by his father.
Yeah.
Hold on one sec. This is my daughter. Yes, I can't talk right now, but I'll call you right back. Okay. Okay, I'll call you right back. Bye.
She wanted to get in on this conversation.
Yeah, I've had a couple of calls. You know, she's called me twice since we've been on this
She's
call.
like, she's like, is get. Did you hear that Get Crazy's on Blu-ray? Tell Alan
You know,
Arkush.
I don't think my kids, I don't think they've ever seen my movies.
Really? I hear that a lot from people, you know?
You know, I mean, it's dad, dad.
Hmm.
I mean, it's. There was one time when my daughter was about 7 or 8 years old, and you know, both my kids went to public school in New York City, and I went into the school to pick her up, and everybody was looking at me differently, and I was sort of like, you know, what's going on? And it turned out that their music teacher had showed hair to the class. And I don't know if the music teacher knew that the father of one of the kids in her class was in the movie or not, but it became this like thing. I mean, of course it became a thing. That's my dad. Oh my God, my God, my God. So, you know. And then they once, I think I sat them down to watch Bless the Beasts and Children. And the opening of that movie is this nightmare where I get shot. All the kids in the movie get these horrible deaths, and they didn't want to watch it after that. And I don't think they've ever gone back. But you know, my kids they don't watch movies. They don't like movies. They're this generation. They like TikTok and this kind of stuff. So
Yeah, I could remember back in the day when phones were attached to the wall. My parents still, I mean, Dad's no longer with us, but I mean, they had an 8-track machine in their place. Like I remember back in those days.
I had one. I had one in my car. Yeah. No, but you
Yeah.
see, I grew up in the milieu where, like, we would go to Carnegie Hall and we would hear Arthur Rubinstein play the piano. You know, we would go to the Metropolitan Opera where my father had a box because he was the general manager. You know, and so this was very sort of this was what we did, when going backstage and friends of the family. I mean, I'll never forget there was an actor named Fritz Weaver. You probably know him. And
Yep.
he was in a musical on Broadway where he played Sherlock Holmes. And my brothers and I all went to see it. And then we went backstage and he took us on a tour of the theater and he showed us his dressing room and all the wigs and how he put on the fake mustaches and everything. And it was just like, wowie zowie to all of us. It was amazing. And I have three brothers. There's four of us, and two of us, went into the showbiz. And one of them is a music teacher, and the other one doesn't want anything to do with the arts or showbiz. I mean, he likes a good movie every once in a while, but he's not never wanted to make a living at it. So, it's just it's what it is.
Okay. Well, it's funny because Alan Arkush did Rock and Roll High School, and I remember telling him that I had Dick Miller on the show here 5 months before he passed away. And I've been very, very fortunate to have had David L. Lander, of course, was in Pandemonium.
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
the show before he passed as well, you know. He wasn't a big fan of that movie, but but I love that kind of humor, you know. So
You've seen Pandemonium? You've seen it? Yeah, well, that's kind of a throw it against the wall until it sticks. We did like anything in that, anything for a cheap laugh, you know. We had a lot of fun making that too. Yeah.
talk about working on that.
Well, I mean, you know, yeah, and that was another one of like, oh, who's on the call sheet today? Oh, Pee Wee Herman's going to be here today. Oh, Donald O'Connor's here today. Oh, Eve Arden is here today. Oh, Tommy Smothers is here today. I mean, this was just like amazing, 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 amazing. And yet, you know, between the core of us, Mark McClure and Judge Reinhold and myself and, you know, Carol Kane, you know, and Deborah Lee Scott and the other girl's name escapes me. I mean,
I love Carol Kane.
yeah, we had a core. I mean, we were very solid. I'm in that movie because of Carol Kane. I mean, Carol saw, I think it was French Postcards, and said to her manager who produced that movie, who's also named Chapin, Doug Chapin, who's a cousin of mine. And actually, Doug used to be an actor, and we had worked together once on a TV show when we were kids. Um, she said, I want, you know, I want this guy. You know, I think he's good. And so that was how I got into that movie. That was another one where I didn't have to do an audition. It was just like, you know, they had a meeting and then they made an offer, you know, it was great. Nowadays you have to like go on tape. I mean, it's ridiculous. That's why I don't do movies anymore. You know, I'm not, I mean, casting offices have turned into offices that for a fee will film your audition that you're supposed to submit, you know, and if you're doing like a Western, you're supposed to show up with the hat and the scarf and the dirt and the whole thing. You know, these guys have zero imagination. Back then, it was like, oh, I saw you in this movie. I want you in my movie. Or like, you did this. I want you to do that, you know. That doesn't seem to happen much anymore, except if somebody comes along, you know, who like, you know how it is. It's like all of a sudden, you know, somebody is in like every movie for 3 or 4 years, and then they just disappear, you know, and it's weird. I think of Adam Driver, who I think is a fantastic actor, but it's like Adam Driver is like in every movie that you want to see right now, you know, and it's like, why don't you give somebody else a break? Let somebody else do a movie, you know. There's nothing.
Yeah.
Adam Driver is a remarkable actor, but it's like, does he have to be in every movie? You know, so funny. Mitch,
I wouldn't complain if Emma Stone was in every movie. I wouldn't complain.
yeah, well, I mean, she was in every movie for like a very brief period. It's harder for women too, because women, there's the whole.
She's my current crush right now is Emma Stone.
Well, the new one that she's in, the Yorgos, whatever, Yorgos.
Yeah, poor things. I can't wait to see it.
I'm in no hurry to see that. Yeah,
Oh, I want to see it. I'll watch Emma Stone in anything, you know.
good, good, good. Yeah. Well,
Yeah, I
we have our crushes. We definitely do.
yeah, I've had a lot of them over the years, you know. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I still like Jennifer Connelly, you know, and of
Oh,
course, you know,
please.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Before we get to Howard the Duck, I did want to touch on Buddy Buddy because I think one of the best comedy duos ever was Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau because you know, like if you watch The Odd Couple, Walter's the straight guy and Lemon is the funny guy. But you watch Out to Sea, Mathoff is a funny guy and Lemon's a straight guy. I love it how those two could switch it up. It's
Yeah.
not like Abbott Costello, where Costello was always the funny guy and Abbott was always the straight guy. Those two could really switch it up, and I always enjoyed their dynamic. Um, Talk about memories of Buddy Buddy, and of course Billy
Well,
Wilder.
well, I mean, Billy Wilder is a living legend at that time. I mean, Billy
Oh,
Wilder.
he made some great movies. The Apartment, Some Like It Hot, you know. I could go on.
We could both go on, you know, Sunset Boulevard,
Sunset Boulevard, Double
Double
Indemnity.
Indemnity. Really?
Wow.
Come on, you know. Okay, so I was kind of hot at that time, and my agent called and said, you know, you want to meet Billy Wilder? I said, hell yes. And they said, get over to the set. And I forget where they were, but basically I met him and he sort of like, okay, so this movie, you're going to be playing this like bellboy. And I said, of course I'm in the bellboy. You know, I'm your bellboy. I want to be your bellboy. And he goes, great, great, great. You know, we'll see you on the set. And it was the most professional situation I've ever encountered in the movies. I mean, everybody on that movie was such a pro that, I mean, literally down to 10 minutes of five, you know, Walter Matthau would start going, Billy, Billy, I don't know if I got another one in me. And they would say, okay, okay, let's wrap for the day. We'll pick it up right where we left off. We've got the two shot. We'll go in for the single. Literally, they wouldn't, because most of the movies I were in were like, the directors felt lucky to be able to make a movie. So they would like, work late at night or work on Saturdays. Not on that set. That was like show up, but you show up on time, you know your lines, you go into makeup, you get ready, you don't waste anybody's time. When it's your turn, camera gets turned on, you do your thing. The reason why I say that is I was at this party about a year later with a guy who was the chief editor of the New York Times. New York freaking Times. And he said, so I understand you're an actor. And I said, yeah. And he goes, well, have you been in anything I would have heard of? And I said, yeah, probably. Like what? And I said, well, I was in this Billy Wilder movie. And he goes, oh, Buddy Buddy? And I said, yeah. And he goes, I went out to Hollywood when they were making that movie, and I had the most amazing thing because I went out to the MGM lot in Culver City, and they had this amazing set built with this hotel, but it was set up on risers so that you could like walk underneath it, and they had laundry chutes and everything, and it was just amazing. And the scene that I was there was this bellhop was like checking out. Jack Lemmon had like tried to hang himself and it didn't work and it broke this pipe, and this poor young actor was like over and over again was getting drenched with water, and it was cold water, and then they would like dry him up and then they would do it again, and then in the middle of it they said, okay, well, we're going to wrap and we'll pick it up tomorrow morning, and then this poor kid was going to have the same thing happen tomorrow morning. And that was me. And he didn't believe me, and I said, no, that was me. That was, and so it was remarkable. But the professionalism of those guys and the way they worked, I mean, I really, really, really appreciated that. Now, when the movie came out, I thought it was a little creaky. It was kind of I didn't like it very much, and I've seen it since. I mean, I had to do one of these Zooms about Billy Wilder, and I saw it again. It's not my favorite Billy Wilder movie. It's not as bad as I thought it was. But, I mean, just to work with Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you that Jack Lemmon is the most generous actor I've ever worked with.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Because that scene I'm telling you, I mean, the one, I'm doing that thing with the pipe and the water spraying all around like this. So we had to pick it up next 9 o'clock for a shot the next morning of close-ups of me doing this, and Lemon is there. I mean, first of all, he's there, right? And he was in the tub. A lot of actors would like have a little tennis ball on a stand, and that's what I'm supposed to play the scene with. But Lemon was there, and he was encouraging me. He was just like under his breath saying to me, come on, kid, just find it. You got to find it, kid. Where were you yesterday? Remember the first time you did this? Just find it, kid. Just find it. And it was just so helpful, so helpful. So, yeah. And that was also the only movie where, and this is really weird, where any kind of like social connections work at all, okay? Because my mother went to school with Walter Matthau's wife, okay? So when my mother heard that I was going to do a movie with Walter Matthau, she said, oh, tell him to say hello to his wife. So the first day I met him in the makeup chair, he was in the next chair and he's doing his crossword puzzle. And I said, excuse me, Mr. Matthau, my mother said to say hello to your wife. And he put down the paper and he looked at me and he said, did you go to Dalton too? Which was the school that they both went to. And he just made that leap. And I said, yes, I did go to the Dalton school. And he said, where else did you go to school? And I said, well, I went to Dalton and I went to this boarding school called Phillips Exeter Academy. And then I went to professional children's school. And he goes, Okay. And he goes back to his paper. And then about a half an hour later, Jack Lemmon came up to me and he said, Walter tells me that you went to Phillips Exeter. And I said, yeah, no, I went there for 2 years. And he said, I went to Phillips Andover Academy. And if I know you're Canadian, you probably don't know this, but like, Harvard and Yale are great rival school or colleges, right? But
Hmm.
right beneath them, you've got Andover and Exeter, even down to like Yale is blue, Andover is blue, Harvard's red, Exeter is red. So he came to me, he goes, I went to Andover, it's like, oh, here we go, And then Izzy Diamond, the writer, came over to me and said, now I hear that your father works at Columbia University, because at that time my father was a dean of the School of the Arts at Columbia. And I said, yeah, no, that's true. And he said, I went to Columbia. It's like you do not expect this on a Hollywood movie set, that this thing counts for anything. Usually you take that kind of background and you don't mention it. You're there. This is all I've got here. I am. But I've never, my education and my social background, my pedigree, came out on that one, which was weird, So, hey, I loved it.
You let's move on to Howard the Duck, because that's another one of your uh more
Yeah.
known credits. That one's of course got a interesting background because it didn't do very well when it came out, but it was certainly something different. So, and of course you get the gorgeous Leah Thompson in it. So I mean,
Leah
yeah,
is, Leah is one of the most hardest working actors I ever worked with. A real professional, a real consummate professional. And Tim
yeah.
Robbins too. Phenomenally talented Tim Robbins. Well, I mean, okay, so Howard the Duck was Willard Huyck and Gloria Katz, the same people that did French Postcards. And we became friends. And I used to stay at their house when I went to LA. In fact, I was staying with them when I shot Buddy Buddy. Um, and I knew they were writing it, and I knew the comic book, and I was like, man, I can't believe somebody's paying you to write this thing. It's like, I know, it's amazing. And so they were writing it, and then I was doing this play in like summer stock in the Berkshires in Western Massachusetts. I was doing a play with Isabella Rossellini and
Hmm.
and, and Tim Daly, uh, and my phone rings one day, and it's Gloria and Willard, and they said, listen, we got a green light for Howard the Duck. And I said, are you kidding me? And they said, no, 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 we're going to make this movie. George is on board, Lucas, and he's going to executive produce it. And so the studio, because of his name, they green lighted it. And I was like, wow, good luck. They said, well, we need your help. And I said, well, what do you want me to do? We don't know. Just I get on a plane, get out here. And I said, well, uh, I'm doing this play, and then I got 2 weeks. Give me 2 weeks, and I'll get out there. So I flew out there, and it was like, I mean, you know how studios work. They said, okay, we'll greenlight this movie, and it's going to be I think it was like a Christmas release in a year and a half, which meant that all the studio apparatus from marketing and merchandising was in motion, but they had to make the movie and deliver it on time. So they hadn't even really like cast or know how they were going to do the duck. It was like, what's going on here? So they basically said, follow us around for a couple of days. I mean, I went out there, they put me on salary, and I found a place to live. And I had a car that I brought up from LA. And so I went on, like, I hung out with them for like 4 or 5 days, and I went on all their meetings, location scouting, costume, wardrobe tests, stuff like this, creative meetings. And then we had lunch like on the fourth or fifth day, and they said, so what do you think? And I said, well, I'll tell you what I think. I think you're kind of in trouble. And they said, what do you mean? And I said, well, you got this script. I mean, this character of Howard is like an amazing character, and it's written really well. But the thing is, he's in every scene. He has every funny line, but you've got nobody playing Howard. I mean, you've got these little dwarves in suits, and you've got a puppet, and you've got these other stunt puppets and these backup stunt doubles and this other dwarf, and you've got all these people making these mechanisms that make the eyeballs move around, and you've got all these makeup people that glue feathers on latex. So you got nobody who's like looking out for the character. And they said, well, that's you. And I said, okay, so what do you want me to do? And they said, basically, you can be the duck coach, the duck wrangler. And that's the credit I have in the movie is duck coach. And they said, how do you want to go about it? And I said, okay, I tell you the first thing I want to do. I'm not sure I've ever told this to anybody on one of these Zooms. I said, okay, I want a half an hour every morning, because we had like 3 weeks before we were going to start shooting. I said, I want half an hour with everybody who's got anything to do with Howard the Duck. Every puppeteer, every makeup person, every wardrobe person. And then we're talking like 40, 50 people. You know, the video assist guys. I want them all together in a room, and we're going to have an acting class. And so we did. And I said, what else I want is I want a very large TV on a stand with a VCR, and I want old episodes of The Honeymooners. You know, Ralph Cramden, you ever seen The Honeymooners? Okay.
I know what you're talking. Yep.
So I said, I mean, maybe I have said this before and maybe you've heard it, but I said I would play The Honeymooners for these guys, and I would say, look what's going on. Look at Jackie Gleason. You know, this guy he's physically there, but his character is just out there. He doesn't just go like this, he goes like this. This is opera. This is bigger than life. Pow, zoom. Alice, I said, this is what we've got to do, because we don't have the expressivity. The eyes are dead, right? And the beak just sort of does this, you know, slowly. So we've got to understand that this is who we're playing. And also we did some like trust exercises and stuff. I said, because we're a team. We're the Howard team. We are Howard the Duck, all of us. Team building exercise. And the thing is, at the beginning of the movie, we were very mysterious to the crew and to like the press people that came, because it's like, you know, who's that guy running around with the little microphone? Who's the guy doing this? Who's the guy doing that? And we kind of like, we kept it a secret, as we wanted to keep Howard a secret. I mean, that was part of the mystique of the thing. And then over time, we discovered a lot of problems, you know, that the suit was uncomfortable. We didn't have time to take it off and put it on. And you know about Ed Gale, and you know about, you know, the replacement and this and that. I mean, from the beginning, I said, look, I forget the little boy's name. I'm sorry. He was a Canadian, one of your countrymen, and he was very cute and very nice, but he was like 12 years old, and he was treated like a movie star. And he melted down like the first day. But I kept saying to Gloria Willard, listen, this guy, Ed Gale, is like tough as nails. This guy, and he's really, you know, he wants to do this. This little boy, I think his name was Jordan. I said, he's really great, and his proportions are much better, but he has a kind of dwarfisms where he's got no power in his hands. You know, I can't even have him like hold a pencil, you know, because he's just, but inside these rubber gloves, he just can't do it. So within like 3 days, he was out and Ed Gale was in. And Ed and I spent a lot of time together because, you know, we had our own communication system. He had a little thing in his ear. I had a microphone. We had the puppeteers. We had our own video slave, you know, and so we got along. And of course, as the rhythm of the movie making and as we all kind of developed that own process, I was needed less and less and less. And also, like any really good job, if it's done well, you either don't see that a job has been done or it looks really, really easy. Okay. Like Fred Astaire dancing, you know, Fred Astaire, it's just like, of course it's Fred Astaire dancing. You try to do that, you know. Robin Williams, oh, he's just being funny. Right. You try to do that, you know? Mm-hmm. So at one point, an actor dropped out and Gloria came to me and she said, so we're switching your job. Next week, you're going to be an actor in the movie. You're not going to be the duck coach anymore. And I said, okay, so what role am I playing? And he said, so-and-so dropped out. And I said, okay, I'll do that. And then I said, but Gloria, who's going to do my job? And she goes, anybody can do your job. And I said, oh, yeah, great. All right, then you do it. Here's the headset. Here's the thing like this. Well, I mean, I wouldn't tell you this story if it didn't kind of melt down that day. It was kind of like it was needed, you know. I mean, a lot of people got pissed off at me because I obviously, like, the director liked me and the producer liked me and they listened to me and they trusted me. And so it was awkward for me because a lot of people just had resentment because of that. And we were very limited. I mean, the puppeteers, for example, we scratched the body puppet because their idea was all the close-ups would be done by, you know, a puppetry team. There was a woman being the arms, and there was a guy on his back being the mouth and the eyes, and the actual mouth was handled by somebody else with remote control. It didn't work. Gloria kept saying, "Oh, it looks so puppety, you know, kind of floating like this." So, you know, we had to fix things. We had to make it up as we went. And it was a very, very grueling shoot. So I was there for every day of principal photography. And then I went to the second unit and I was there for like, I don't know, 4 weeks. It seemed like forever with the second unit. And it was the same thing all over again. You know, it was really hard. It was a
You know
very,
what
very,
it reminds me of? I worked a job for 13 months and I got gaslit and I lost my job due to somebody poking his nose where he shouldn't have. And I ended up blowing up and I lost my job.
yeah,
Um, it's funny, I kept hearing, "Oh, you're just a number. They can replace you." And I'm looking back, I'm like, because I'm still hearing problems that they're having at
yeah,
that job. And I'm
yeah,
like, no, they can replace me, but they can't replace me because number one, I never missed a day of work during the 13 days I was there. I got 9 Bravos at that job.
yeah.
I worked overtime, including like I worked double shifts and I worked including an 18-hour shift. And that would usually happen when you had a 3-day weekend, and it was always 17 people,
Yeah,
always 17 that called in sick on a 3-day weekend, which means they weren't sick, they just didn't want to go to work.
of course.
I get done an overnight and I would stay on. I'm like, yeah, they're not replacing me.
Yeah, well, I would get on Howard the Duck these complaints from these actors. You know, part of the Screen Actors Guild is that you have what's called a 12-hour turnaround, meaning
Mhm.
there's 12 hours between the time that you're dismissed from the set and they can call you back. If they don't do that, if they violate that, they got to pay you shit ton of money. Okay. Now, I was on the crew. So if we had 12 hours on the clock on the set, right? And there were some of those locations were like a 2-hour drive from where we were living. I was living in Sausalito, right? So those sequences like flying the airplane through the town and landing it, you know, and the drive, you know, flying the thing through the train, all that stuff. Those were like, you know, that was near Fresno, for God's sake. So I was having 12 plus 2, 14, 16-hour days, you know, and yet I'd have to listen to the actors complain about, oh, you know, my sandwich wasn't warm or something. And it was just like, I can't, you know, I wanted to bitch slap people. It's just like, guys, you know, get with it, you know. But it also, I mean, that movie, it was just, it was the wrong time for that movie. When we were shooting that movie, Industrial Light and Magic was doing the very first CGI in a major motion picture, you know, which was the sword fighting scene in Young Sherlock Holmes. This is legendary, you know, the stained glass window comes to life. And they, you know, the computer power, it took them like 8 months to render that 2 minutes of footage. And at the same time as we were shooting Howard the Duck, they were shooting Who Framed Roger Rabbit, you know, which was mixed cartoon and live action. But Gloria and Willard wanted to do Howard the Duck with practical effects. So we were like one of the last big budget Hollywood movies to do practical effects. And part of what I did was I really wanted to know, because I was interested in making movies, how do you do that? You know, what is matte photography? What is models? And we were at ILM. And of course, because, you know, people would see me and George Lucas talking on the set, you know, they assumed that I was like one of the good guys. So if I said to somebody, gee, can I come in at lunch hour and will you show me through how you do this, how you do your job? You know, would you? And so I got this incredible education on special effects movie making, but it was useless because it's all done with CGI now, you know. I mean, there was one day where they were shooting they were shooting some sequence, I think it was Star Trek, and they had this like 4 foot, that's about 4 feet, piece of vacuum formed plastic, square, 4 feet square, and it had a channel here and a channel there, and these like buildings everywhere, right? And they had hundreds, thousands of these things. They were all the same, and they took them out in the parking lot at Industrial Light and Magic, and they would put one down, and then next to it they'd take one and give it a quarter turn and put it down, and then they'd put one down like this, and then they'd spin one around this way, and basically they had them painted, and they had them lined up like 100 yards of these things, and then they had a snorkel camera, which is like a camera that where it like a fiber optic thing that would, and only that little trench was only about this big, right? That would go along that trench, down the middle of that trench. And I was fascinated by this. In Star Wars, right? When they go to kill the Death Star, and like, I'm going in, Red Leader, you know, and then they go in and it's that, you know, all that stuff going by. That's what that is. That's how they get that shot, is because it's a snorkel camera going right through this thing. It's a practical effect. And there was all kinds of stuff like that. And I really wanted to find out. So like I went in and, you know, the little computerized gimbals that would take the camera and the like the X-wings, you know, and they would do this. You know, the camera would move and they would do that, and they would do it over and over again. And it's like super slow motion. And then when they would film it and then speed it up, and it was like, you know, but they had all, it was all practical. It was not in, you know, in the computer. Fascinating, but totally useless because that way of movie making is gone, you know. So
What
anyway,
was George Lucas like?
he's just like everybody says he is, you know. He's very quiet, he's very shy, he's absolutely fascinating. Doesn't have a great sense of humor, you know. He was dating Linda Ronstadt, that was cool, you know. But I always liked George. I mean, George just, you know, he's awkward with people, so I never bothered him. He never bothered me, you know. I mean, I can't, you know, I'm sure a friendly guy, you know. I mean, if he walked in the room, he'd probably recognize me, but you know, I didn't want to be his friend. I wasn't like, you know, trying to kiss his butt or anything. It's just like, you know, I had my job and doing my job, you know, like that. But he's, I mean, he was kind of fascinating. He also was very aloof. He didn't have much to do with the making of that movie. I mean, it was one time where we were like a week or two away from shooting, and he called me. His office called first, and then he said, "George wants to talk to you." And I said, "Sure." So we got on the phone, and he said, "Listen, Miles, we have a little pressure from the studio because they haven't like they're spending a lot of money, but they haven't seen anything for it. So the head of the studio, and I forget who it was at that moment, is coming. The head of Universal is coming for lunch at Skywalker Ranch,
Mm-hmm.
and if it's okay with you, I'd like to do a little gag for him." And I said, "Well, what did you have in mind?" He said, "Well, it would be okay. It's like if we're having lunch, like you come into the room like and you like wear a lab coat or something, and you can have like crazy glasses if you want, and like you look like a mad scientist." And I'll say, "Miles, what's going on?" And I'll say, "You know, George, you know, he got away, he escaped." "What do you mean he escaped?" "Howard, we can't find Howard." And then like from behind you, we'll have Jordan run out in the suit and run around, and then you'll get like a big net and you'll catch him and say, "Sorry to disturb your lunch, guys," you know, as a gag for the studio executive. And we did it. We did it. You know, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot. Actually, it was a lot of fun. "Miles, what do you want?" "George, you didn't happen to see anything, did you?" "See what?" You know, we were like just improvising it, you know. "No. Are you telling me he got loose?" "Yes, Project X is loose." "Oh my God. Oh my God. There he goes." You know, like, you know, and Jordan like ran through my legs or something. I mean, it was fun, you know. So we did that, you know, and he would just like come by every week or two and say to Gloria and Willard, I mean, they're old friends, you know, "How's it going?" You know, and then I remember him saying once, "Oh, just keep the budget below 50 million, 40 million, and they'll be happy. Don't go too far over it," you know, and I got your back. And it was that kind of a thing, you know. I mean, that's why George went back up to California, you know. but it's a just amazing group of people up there. I mean, they're some of the most creative people you'll ever meet. Just
Hmm.
phenomenal people. I mean, there were the mechanics shop, the creature shop, and the great problem solvers, and they knew great shortcuts, and they really knew how to like sell a gag, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot about a kind of movie making that's no longer done. So.
And it tied with Under the Cherry Moon for worst picture at the Razzies that year too.
Well, I mean, to this day, people will say, well, this movie's bad, but it's not Howard the Duck bad, which is too bad.
I say not Geely bad.
Yeah, I've never seen that. I know the one you mean, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but
I'll
then,
watch.
then Howard the Duck shows up in what, Guardians of the Galaxy, and so everybody is like, oh, they're going to do another one. And if they do another one, I hope they call me to do an appearance, a cameo or something, because I would very much love to do that. I don't look that much different. I mean, I'm a lot older, but I'm just an aging juvenile. So it's
I've
I
seen all the Guardians of the Galaxy, and the superhero movies right now aren't doing that well, but yet
oh
those are
Marvel. No.
still Guardians of the Galaxy 3 did well this
Yeah,
year,
no,
you
no,
know? So,
those are good. They're tongue in cheek. Yeah, yeah. No, the Marvels didn't do well, but
yeah.
that opening. Somebody told me about that, and I caught up with it on disc just for that scene at the end with Howard the Duck in a bar. It's like holy moly. So yeah,
Yeah. I would ask you about one more movie, which I did see in the theater, was The Associate with Whoopi Goldberg and Diane Wiest.
yeah, yeah. Difficult shoot.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, yeah. I'd known Whoopi before, and I came on near the end of that shoot, and Whoopi and the director were not on real speaking terms. It was ugly. It was really, really ugly. Um,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, Whoopi is a very passionate woman, and I think she's got a lot of anger in her, and it comes out, and she gets misinterpreted a lot, you know, and I mean, that movie was kind of ballsy for her to do, impersonating a white man. I mean, come on. Um, so it was a little awkward, but it was good to be part of it. I mean, I like the director. I had known him socially. Um, I did have to go on tape for that, but I got that part. I mean, I was just like shooting that like one day. I've never seen it, to tell you the truth. I've never seen the
Okay.
movie. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll tell you what's weird about it was the office, the scene where we, shot those office sequences, that big like trading floor.
Hmm.
They needed a trading floor, and the thing is, in the trading markets in New York City, that action's going on 24/7 because there's always something being traded somewhere in the world, right? So they got the use of, I don't know, the Credit Suisse commodities exchange that was going to be down for like 6 hours. And those 6 hours were 6 in the morning on Sunday to Sunday noon. So that was the only time we had to shoot that. So my call, I live in Queens, and my call was like 4 o'clock in the morning, Sunday morning, 4 o'clock, show up at, lower Manhattan. Whoa. Well, first of all, I get on the local subway train here, 4 o'clock in the morning, and it's packed full of people. And it's all people going to work. It's all like, people going to work in hotels, people, I mean, because I live in Queens, it's just like very, working class. Um, and then it was a very high, intense set because there was this palpable tension between the director and Whoopi, and they were very much under the time limit. So if she wanted to be a real stinker, she could cause them to go over and cost them a lot of money, you know. And that's the kind of thing with movies. It's just like, oh God, I mean, it's hard enough to think of a movie and write it and get a deal to blow it for things like that really aren't worth it. It's just like,
Hmm.
no wonder the movie business is just like in the hopper all the time. It's too
Yeah.
bad. It's too bad. Yeah. I mean, Whoopi is phenomenally talented. I mean, amazingly talented. And I met her before her big breakthrough. And when I met her, she said, I know who you are. And I said, why is that? He goes, because I have a daughter who's in love with you. And I said, she's in love with me? What do you mean? He goes, because you got that movie, French Postcards, and that's like on heavy rotation on Cinemax. I've seen that movie 3 or 4 times. That's a really good movie. You're really good in that movie. And I said, thank you, thank you, thank you. So that was how I met her. I mean, that's a nice way to sort of, that's a nice footing to get off on. But she's become a huge star since then, and it wasn't paid enough money, since she was, I mean, I don't know, all the stories. I don't know.
Do you got any charities or a web page that you want to plug and promote on here?
Oh, sure. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm a very big charitable guy. I'm a deep green. I'm a real environmentalist. But
Hmm.
right now, my passion is a group called the Navigators. It's an alternative scouting group. It's boys and girls, all ages, and it started in New York City about 20 years ago because I was part of this group that sponsored a Boy Scout troop in Harlem, up in Harlem. And when the whole nonsense about the Boy Scout and all the sexual scandals came out, we just said we can't do this. We can't support this anymore. So we quit, but we invented our own scouting movement, and it's called the Navigators. And it is now almost 400 chapters all over the United States and Canada, and Africa, UK, and France. The website is navigatorsusa.org. Not navigators.org. Navigators.org sends you to a fundamentalist Christian group. We're Navigators USA, but it's all based on the moral compass. And there are 8 things in the moral compass. Take care of your body, take care of your family, take care of the earth. And it is fantastic. We have jamborees in the summertime, and it's all run by volunteers. Everybody is a volunteer, and I'm on the board. I'm the secretary of it. And if anybody is so moved to go to Navigators USA and hit that little button and send them even $50 makes a huge difference for this group. And it is so cool. I mean, you see these kids. I mean, there's a chapter that's all autistic people in the upper Midwest, and they're adults. But and you get badges. It's just like scouting. You get a badge for learning how to sew or how to tie a knot. And it's gets kids outdoors. It gets them away from these things, teaches them outdoor skills. The best. Navigators USA, and thank you for that opportunity. I appreciate it.
You guys bring Alan Arkush in there with his
No, it's funny. I do a lot of things. I have my fingers in a lot of pies,
Mhm.
and to me, I'm really proud of all the things that I do, and I love that I'm doing them. And there's always something that I care about, but I don't push one to the other. It's not that I want to keep the worlds apart, but I'm the youngest of 4 boys. So I was making movies when I was a kid. So I had my older brothers, torture me and sit on me and, tell me, don't get too big for my britches and all this kind of stuff. And I still kind of feel that way. I mean, I'm fiercely, fiercely proud of the work that I've done. Nothing has been a big hit. That's the difference. I mean, there are a lot of actors, frankly, that I think, I'm a better actor than, who have been in some hits, and they get the movies, or back then they got the movies. It's okay. I've made peace with that. I sleep very well at night. And I'd love to do more movies, but I don't think it's going to happen unless somebody goes, "Oh my God, you're that guy."
Well, here's a question I ask of everybody that comes on here that does the conventions. What's the most unique thing you've ever been asked to sign?
Uh, well, you mentioned Sean. Uh, the
John
the
Clark?
Sean Clark. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He's not the guy that I go to at the conventions. Um, but when I met him, he was like such a fan, and he really knew his stuff. And he said, "Have you ever seen these?" And he had a set of lobby cards from Funhouse from Argentina, and they were all in Spanish, and the graphics were all different. And I said, "Wow, I've never seen those. I would love to have those." And he said, "Well, what do you got to trade?" And I said, "I'll tell you what I have to trade. I have a pair of Richie's glasses." And he goes, "You're kidding." And I said, "Nope." because in the original script of Funhouse, Richie was wearing glasses, and
Yep.
there was a sequence where Richie, when I forget what sequence it was. His body was supposed to fall, and in slow motion, his head hits the ground, and the glass inside the glasses shatters. You know. And so I really worked hard to get this effect. And I went and I found the glasses, and I got like 10 pairs of them. And we didn't have time to shoot the gag. But that's why I'm wearing glasses in that movie, you know. And some of them are clear glass because I wear glasses and I'm wearing contact lenses now. Anyway, I had one pair left. And so I swapped with Sean Clark, and I said, "You give me those lobby cards, I'll give you these glasses." Now that's not something weird to autograph, but that's a weird kind of swappy thing. But yeah, when you autograph people's belly buttons, you know, and you autograph their underwear and shit, and that's like, okay, fine, whatever you want, you know, whatever floats your boat. You know what I
Well,
mean?
Catherine Mary Stewart told me that she signed somebody's butt cheek.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, yeah. I've never did a butt cheek. I did breast like up here. I've done those, you know, but not like major boob. I'm talking about, cleavage here, you know. Uh,
I had Sean Clark on here a couple of times. I come to know who he is through Ted White, the stunt man who was in Friday the 13th, the final chapter. And I had Sean on here twice, and I met him at Frightmare in the Falls just this past October when I was there working with Lisa Langlois. And so I got acquainted with Sean, and I got to meet him, and pretty cool guy. He gave me some horror hologram stickers, that he had
nice,
on him,
nice. Yeah,
but
he's a cool
yeah,
guy.
yep,
Yeah, cool
yep.
guy.
So yeah,
Well,
I don't
thank
know
you.
how he keeps his hair standing up like that, but
I know that's quite a trick. Quite a trick. Well, thank you. Thank you for letting me pitch the Navigators, and thank you for the time. This was fun. I love talking about movies.
oh, I enjoy it too. I had a lot of fun having you on here, and Tommy Kovac spoke very highly of you, and he
Thanks.
often, if he likes interviewing somebody, he'll contact me. He'll say, "Greg, have you ever had this person on your show? If not, you have this person on. This person's really good, and this and that." So I got the spill on you from him. So
Nice, nice. Well,
yeah.
it's fun. It's fun, and also, I mean, as I said, I'm very proud of the work that I did, and I don't get to talk to it about it much, so I like these opportunities. Hope you got some stuff to work with.
Oh, I had a lot of fun with this.
Good.
Before I let you go, would you mind doing a plug for my show?
Sure. What is it? What
Just
do
uh,
I,
just state your name and say you're listening to Greg Gilbert on Python's Paradise.
Hey, this is Miles Chapin, listening to Greg Gilbert on Python's Paradise. Be there.
And you're gonna come up here and do some more salmon fishing?
I hope so. If I get invited back, if not, I'll just have to go up and there's not a lot of public salmon fishing in New Brunswick. In Quebec, there is. Um, yeah, I'll be up there. I'll be up there. Yeah, I like it.
You
Good.
get to work with a lot of beautiful women in these movies, from Beverly to Valerie to Leah. Who is the most breathtaking? I'm putting you on the spot here.
No, you got to be more specific. Who's the most breathtaking woman that I've worked with in a movie?
Yeah,
Marie Frost Pizier,
don't know that name.
French actress. She's in French Postcards. She plays the teacher. She was in a French movie called Cousin Cousine. Um, I mean, just I met her we were doing makeup tests, and I walked into this room, and she had makeup, and they were lighting her like this, and just the line of her face was just like staggeringly beautiful. And then she come and hung out in L.A., and I got to hang out with her and all her French friends, and they were like, they'd all rented like convertible Cadillacs. Oh, isn't this amusing? And then we went to the Montreal Film Festival together. She was my date. It was like, oh my God,
Was she the one on the bus doing all the?
right at the beginning of French Postcards, she's the
Oh
close
my
up.
goodness, she was beautiful. I watched that clip last night. Okay, okay, I get you.
Yeah, well, watch the movie. You'll see that she's a leading role in that movie. My David Grant, my buddy in the movie, he has an affair with her. That's the like part of the plot engine of the movie.
Oh, gee, he beat you to it,
Well,
huh?
no, no, I have an affair with Valerie Kinnison, and he has an affair with her. And
Okay, well, you still won out then.
well, the thing is, what happens is that he and I are buddies, and I know that the night that they're finally going to get it on, her husband is out of town, and I see him, and I say, but Monsieur, why are you here? And he goes, oh, there was a strike at the airport. I'm just going to go home now. And I'm like, why don't we go and let's get a beer together? Because I'd like to get to know you better. And I'm like trying to stall him and keep him away because my buddy is screwing his wife back in the house. You'll see. You'll see. Yeah. Watch the
Oh,
movie.
I'm gonna
Good
have
movie.
to,
Really
you
good movie.
know. Oh, some striking, beautiful one. I gotta see French postcards. If anything, Valerie Comesson, I gotta see her. She's beautiful.
Beautiful.
Anyway,
All right.
it was wonderful having you come on here. Come back to
Pleasure.
New Brunswick anytime. This was an honor to have you on the show today.
Thank you. My honor to be here, Greg. Take care.
And happy Thanksgiving, USA to you.
That was yesterday. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
We have it
Cool.
in October. I don't get it, but
I know. My daughter went to college in Canada, and we had both Thanksgivings. I got to go up to Bishop's University in Sherbrooke, Quebec, for your Thanksgiving, and then back here for ours. Anyway, I
there
gotta
you
go.
go.
I gotta return my daughter's call, see what's on her mind. Take
Take
care.
care, man.
Yeah.
Bye bye.